Right out there. It's another beautiful day to be a college football fan. And great to see all of you here at the Voice of College Football on a Monday, 6 Eastern, 6:05, 6:10 Eastern, right here at the Voice of College Football. Great to be here. Great to have all of you here. And you see the banner below, College Football Coaches Rankings. At the conclusion of the last few college football seasons, we ranked the teams 1 through 130. We recently ranked the programs. So make the distinction between the programs and the teams. Those are two different rankings. The programs is the big picture landscape, the program versus that particular team, that particular year. We did program rankings. Check out those videos of the program rankings, the team rankings for 2021. And now we conclude our college football coaches rankings. We have ranked top to bottom coaches in the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC. In our last two rounds with the SEC and the Big 10, we presented to you live. Wanted to get your feedback and talk to you about it directly. That spurred on some great conversation, some great debate. And now we unveil our college football coaches rankings. So welcome in. Keep in mind that we will be with you each and every day this week, as we always are here at the Voice of College Football. Next up on Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, Iowa Live, at 7 o'clock Eastern, Nebraska Live on those particular channels. So, of course, we know that not every Power 5 coach is better than every Group of 5 coach. Just like every Power 5 team is not better than every Power 5 or Group of 5 team. Same thing here. So my attempt was going to be to rank every coach in the country, 1 through 130. I found that to be a little difficult, arduous, for obvious reasons. So I distinguished and split up the Group of 5 versus the Power 5. And so I'm going to touch upon the Group of 5 rankings briefly and give you an idea of where some of these Group of 5 head coaches would rank among the big boys. So it's almost an even split. We got 65 head coaches in the Power 5, if you include Notre Dame. You got 64 in conferences. And then, of course, Notre Dame can't be in a conference. So you got Notre Dame as the one team outside the Power 5 playing at that level. So Power 5, 65. Group of 5, 65. On the Group of 5 level, yes, I ranked everyone 65 all the way up to number 1. However, there a lot of guys just beginning their head coaching careers. Rhett Lashlee at SMU has not coached the game as a head coach. Rhett Lashlee at SMU, really good program. And, of course, Rhett Lashlee has a distinguished offensive coordinator resume, but he hasn't coached at that level. Timmy Chang at Hawaii. A number of coaches on the Group of 5 level have yet to coach one game, or maybe they just completed one season. So I'm not going to go through the entire Group of 5, 1 through 65. I will point out a top 12 in the Group of 5. And also keep in mind that we've got a number of head coaches outside this dozen that are really capable, really good coaches on the Group of 5 level. Jeff Traylor, Texas San Antonio, doing a tremendous job there, coming off a near undefeated season, bowl win, conference championship. Butch Jones, coming off a rough 2-10 at Arkansas State in his first year, but he's got much to clean up there. Did a decent job at Tennessee. He's the best Tennessee head coach since Phil Fulmer. That's not saying much, but Butch Jones had a couple successful seasons in the top 15 in the nation at Tennessee. He's now at Arkansas State. Of course, Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky doing a nice job. A guy that I probably should rank in the top dozen. I didn't vet these out in the Group of 5. Just kind of bam, 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 knocked it out. Ken Niumatalolo at Navy. exceptional head coach. He's had 2 down years here in 2020 and 21, really bad seasons at Navy. But, man, he's had a great ride at Navy, and he's just a first-class individual and head coach. And Navy's been, of course, one of the great programs in the group of 5. And we know all the limitations at the service academies. So Niumatalolo should probably have him in the top dozen if I was going to rework this. Jeff Monken at Army, just outside the top dozen. Of course, Sean Clark is the new head coach at Appalachian State, doing a nice job, 20-7 his last 2 years, or only 2 years there at App State. Philip Montgomery seems to take on the big boys at Tulsa, does a nice job there. Mike Houston is really doing a nice job at East Carolina. We got Ryan Silverfield, and following that procession of Justin Fuente and Mike Norvell at Memphis. And he's coming off a 6-6 year, though. Thomas Hammock at Northern Illinois just won the MAC championship at lifting that program. A lot of good head coaches in the group of 5. Here's the dozen that let's hit on briefly before we move it on to the Power 5. Kalani Sitake at number 12 from BYU in the group of 5. Of course, they could be argued to be a Power 5 program. They're caught in the middle, but soon to be a Power 5 if the Big 12 remains and retains that status. Dana Holgerson, good run at West Virginia, of course. Came very close to doing some big things at West Virginia. Did win a Big 12 championship there, or that was the last season in the Big East. Apologies there. Big East championship and an Orange Bowl win at the conclusion, and coming off a fine season at Houston. Of course, at 12-1, Bill Clark at UAB, their head coach, in coming back, reinstating football after a layoff, and that's difficult to do. And he's been exceptional, coming off a bowl win over BYU, multiple conference championships in Conference USA. Hugh Freeze, Liberty, of course, we know what he did at Ole Miss, both on the field plus, off the field minus. Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Brady Hoke, recruited well at Michigan, did not win on the field except for that 2011 season. They won the Sugar Bowl. San Diego State's been a good home for him, and San Diego State continues to be one of the class acts in the group of 5. Clay Helton, disparaged by USC fans. I understand. He didn't deliver for the most part. Still's got a Rose Bowl win. Multiple New Year's 6 appearances. Pac-12 championship, the only one for USC going back to 2008. Troy Calhoun at Air Force. What a job he's done. He's been there forever. And, of course, Air Force, much like Niumatalolo at Navy facing, and Jeff Monken at Army, they're in another category. When they can compete at a high level at the military academies, it just blows me away at how impressive that is. You know, when an Air Force, or like Navy went 11-2 a couple of years ago and won a bowl game against Washington State. You know, those type seasons, Navy, Air Force, and Army coming off that 10-3 season with a bowl win against Missouri, those are more impressive to me in many ways than national championship teams, based on the limitations and those other institutions, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, et cetera, on down the line, living, breathing football. These guys have more important things to do, and it's exceptional what they accomplish. Jamie Shadwell, heck of a job at Coastal Carolina, putting them on the map. Of course, Blake Anderson, what a job he did this past season at Utah State. And no, Blake Anderson, I don't believe, is the 4th best coach in the country. If you just joined us, we're running down the group of 5. Blake Anderson at Utah State, phenomenal job he did at Arkansas State, at one point winning 5 consecutive Sun Belt championships at Arkansas State. Blake Anderson just came off a 10-3 season at Utah State, and they had been losing. He lifted them immediately, and they won a bowl game against Oregon State. Jim Mora at Uconn, of course, has done nothing yet at Uconn, and that's going to be a enormous lift to take on. Enormous challenge. Jim Mora at UCLA, though, has been the best UCLA coach going back to probably Terry Donahue in terms of wins and losses. Finished in the top 10 at UCLA. That's not being done at all before or after Jim Mora. Jim Mora, of course, capable enough to be a head coach in the NFL and go to an NFC championship game. At number 2 in the group of 5, we got Gus Malzahn of UCF. like Jim Mora, has shown that he can achieve at the Power 5 level and came within a whisker of a national championship in 2013, another SEC near championship in 2017, won the division. Only guy for about 8 years that could compete with Nick Saban. Not week to week, but in that 1 week at the end of November. Gus Malzahn at number 2, looking to build something big at UCF. And at number 1, remarkable what Luke Fickell has done. I interviewed Luke Fickell after his 4-8 season at Cincinnati. And the way he clearly, emphatically, with conviction conveyed his beliefs about his team, about his program, about his approach, about the process he was putting in place. Yeah, I'm surprised that Cincinnati is one of the top football teams in the country. They're a legit top 10 to 15 team in the country the last 2 to 3 seasons. Of course, they were elevated in the rankings much higher than that. They just reached the playoffs, something we thought could not be achieved by a group of 5 team. Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, heck of a job, coming off of what, like 10-3, 11-2, 9-1, 12-1, 13-1. All right, so those are the group of 5 rankings. And again, there's a lot of other notables that I ran down. Craig Bull at Wyoming among them as well. Up until a couple years ago, Seth Luttrell at North Texas doing a nice job there. Sean Lewis at Kent State, a difficult place to win there. All right, let's get some comments here before we dive into the Power 5. Appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. Please consider Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Also, we got the Super Chat on here. Appreciate your contributions, keeping us going here at the Voice of College Football. If you have any contacts with potential sponsors, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail for potential sponsors. And again, our next up on our live stream caravan that we carry on through each week, Tuesday night at 5:30 Eastern, Iowa Live, and then at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Nebraska Live here at the Voice of College Football. Would love to know who's your team. So we got just about 34,000 subscribers here. We've got almost 100. We're going to celebrate at 100,000. 100,000, not just 100,000 here. Yes, that will be a major celebration, 100,000 on the main channel. But we're about 2,000 away on all the channels put together, the entire network, which I understand is not a complete and accurate count because many of you, and thank you very much, are subscribed to multiple channels. So we don't know how many subscribers we have. I got to guess it's 70 or 75,000 total, but our subscriber count is pushing 100,000. Let's have a big party at 100,000. And then when the main channel hits 100,000, where's my realistic goal for that? What do you think? That would be great by the end of the year as well. 100,000 on the main channel. But I would love to know who I'm talking to in regards to fan bases. Look at all these helmets back here. I purchased most of those, but then you guys started to supply those. And we had a tremendous, and I believe that Eric's responsible for this, infusion of Pac-12 helmets. And Texas A&M has been a recent ad. North Carolina, Nebraska. Thank you for those. So hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Who is your team? Let me know right there. Tell me your college football story. Would also love to know how long you've been watching. And no, I'm not going to abuse your email. Ask anybody in the chat. Okay. Join us on Discord. You go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, sign up there. I get you the link. We've got about 50 to 55 folks on Discord here at the Voice of College Football. We would love that to be 500 to 1,000 by the end of the year as well. Let's get back to the rankings. You know what? I want to see your comments first on the group of 5. Then we'll go to the Power 5. Dave, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. If you have yet to do so, would love to put your vote in. Michigan's winning right now. Exploring with Ben. Shh, 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 shh. No. You know you're the only one I abuse. You're the only one that I keep bothering. LBC Trojan. Grew up on New Year's Day watching USC beat either Ohio State or Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Yeah, that happened a lot. I don't know when you grew up, but it was obviously before 1988 because that ceased after that. That was the end of that. But yeah. 89, 84, 79, 78, 77, 74, 72, etc. 69. Yeah. All right. Hey, Rat, does Cincinnati still count as group of 5? They'll be in the Big 12 in 23, right? Yes, in 23. Probably in 23. That appears to be where we're headed with this, is that Texas, Oklahoma will make their transition to the SEC in 2023. And if all works out well with contracts and so forth, and believe me, both conferences want it to work to where there is a transition at the same time. The Big 12 does not want to be left without Texas and Oklahoma and not getting the other 4 and be left for a football season with only a Big 8. And so the Big 12 is the conference that has the most motivation to get that transition going and for it to work out. Joey, good to see you, man. So back to the comments here. Yes, again, Kirby, at that point, somebody will determine for us where the Big 12 stands, or we will make that call on our own. LBC Trojan, yes. Let's not forget, Ohio State got a couple wins in there in 1968 and 74. And, of course, Michigan, Bo Schembechler's last bowl victory was against USC as well. So there were a few. All right, back to the task at hand. I don't necessarily see any comments in the group of 5. The real MVP says 24-hour stream. Right now, let's do it. Let's just keep it going. For any of you that were with us at the outset of the 2021 college football season, you know that we did a 24-hour live stream. And I am stupid enough to do it again. I did bail for 5 hours and had guest hosts come in for those 5 hours. So I didn't complete the 24 hours. I only did 19 of the 24 hours. Exploring with Ben, yeah, click the like button. We appreciate that. It's free and doesn't hurt you at all. Go Gators. Okay, I need to be efficient with the chat here. I love to see all the comments and respond to everything, but I can't do that. I can't do that because then I get way behind. But I do want to see if there are any meaningful comments on my group of 5 list. Kirby says that Fickle is legit. Can't believe he isn't at a big-time powerhouse program yet. Maybe he doesn't want to be. Look at Brent Venables. He could have been at a school, the status of Auburn. He waited for the job that he wanted. Hummus Hero believes that Luke should be in the top 5 to 10 among all the coaches. All right. Let's get to the Power 5. Falcon Rex, thank you. I see you. I see you out there, Falcon Rex. Buck 99. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for that. We will get that to the screen. All right. Let's fire it up. We got 65 coaches in the Power 5. Who's the worst? Who's not getting the job done right now? I tend to rank the coaches that are doing a poor job. I rank them lower than the coaches that have just received a job, because the coaches that just received a job, they're neutral. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't shown us anything. The records are 0-0. Dan Lanning, 0-0 at Oregon. Now he's giving us good indications, and we'll discuss that in just a second, that he can handle the Oregon job and do a fine job, and he's the right man for the job. But he's 0-0, as opposed to other coaches who, all right, now we'd have to give a failing grade 2. And this guy's been on the job for 2 seasons in Atlanta. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. I thought this was a good hire. I figured, hey, look at Temple has typically produced decent to good to really good, in Matt Rule's case, Power 5 head coaches. Al Golden, maybe not, but Al Golden didn't get stampeded at Miami. Jeff Collins took over. Yes, much was made of the roster transition that would have to take place with Jeff Collins taking over an offense and updating the offense with a bunch of triple option personnel. Okay, that was too much made out of that, first and foremost. He's had 2 seasons. He's had 3 off seasons. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech is, what do you go, 1-10 and 3-9? The record, something in that range. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech at number 65. Paul Johnson won at Georgia Tech. It can be done. Paul Johnson typically was in the 7-5 range and would pop up with a few 10-win seasons. He went to an Orange Bowl in 2010. He went to another Orange Bowl and won it against Mississippi State in 2014 after he played in the ACC championship game. Paul Johnson got Georgia Tech to multiple ACC championship games. The book is not closed on Jeff Collins. Of course, if, hey, Georgia Tech pops and let's say they go 7-5 this year, yay, he will elevate, of course. But based on what he's done thus far, after a decent small window of time at Temple, Jeff Collins severely underachieving at Georgia Tech. At number 64, we got a guy that, wow, he's got a big job ahead of him. He is started at 1-11. They lost to an FCS team, but Arizona finally won a Pac-12 game. And I don't remember exactly who they beat. Was it Cal? Who did they beat? Washington State? I'm not remembering who Arizona beat last season, but they finally won a Pac-12 game. You would think that after Rich Rod had the program and Kevin Sumlin, that Arizona football would be in great shape. Arizona football has been a winning football program going back to its entry into the Pac-12 in 1978. This has been a winning football program. Not dominant, not great, not championship status. They've never won the Pac-12. I believe they're the only school in the conference that's been there the entire time, going back to the late 70s, and not won the conference. But it's always been a good football program. Go to bowl games, went to a Pac-12 championship under Rich Rod in 2014. But man, that should be Jed Fish. When I was typing, I guess I was just going so fast, I didn't think about it. Jed Fish, 2 Ds. That's what screwed me up there, I guess. 2 Ds, Jed Fish, of course, former offensive coordinator at UCLA and Michigan. Jed Fish at Arizona. We're going to keep him down because, man, it was an awful football team, but it's understandable. He inherited a horrendous football program at Arizona, but they finally won a game in the Pac-12, and they competed down the stretch, and it really bothers me that I can't remember who they lost to this past season or who they beat. They lost to everybody. They beat somebody in the Pac-12. Somebody bad, obviously. They beat, good Lord, where's their schedule? There it is. California. I thought so. So Justin Wilcox, not a good mark on your resume. Arizona finally wins 10-3 against Cal. They played Washington close down the stretch, 21-16. USC within a touchdown. They only lost to Utah, 38-29. And then they got blown out the last two games against Washington State and Arizona State. Jed Fish, Arizona. All right, at number 63, this guy had one really good season. Smoke and mirrors on this one. 2018, Dino Babers and Syracuse finished in the top 15 in the nation, 10-3. They beat West Virginia without half their football team, Will Greer, receivers, left tackle. And they had a really good season. But if you look at that team, you knew that they were not a top 15 team. They lost to Notre Dame by 33 points. So anyway, one good season out of Dino Babers. He's been around forever. It's like 15-35 in the ACC. And yes, it's difficult to win at Syracuse, but it's not difficult to go 6-6 or 7-5 at Syracuse and go to bowl games. Doug Marrone, Scott Scheffler, can be done. Dino Babers, do better. You're a class act. He seems like a great guy. Seems like he's great for his players, a great communicator, a great mentor, but to date, not a great leader of a football program. One season, really good. You take that out, and the record is deplorable. They went 1-10 2 years ago, and another failure of a season out of Syracuse. And this team is close. They're many times close. They had a 3-week stretch this past season where they lost to Florida State in the last minute of the game. They took Wake Forest to overtime, and they lost to Clemson in the final minute of the game, 17-14. Clemson, Wake, and Florida State down to the last minute of the game. Couldn't get it done. Dino Babers at Syracuse. I would love to see him succeed there. I would love to. If I could pick out about 3 or 4 football programs across the country that I would like to see succeed that have not for a long time, Syracuse is one of them. I would love to see Syracuse football succeed. I would love to see Purdue and Minnesota succeed. I would love to see Kansas succeed. That would be phenomenal to see Kansas jump up and succeed. In the Pac-12, for some reason, I like UCLA. I guess it's just the color scheme. Let's knock out Florida. That is the nicest looking uniform outside of Ohio State in college football, UCLA. I think that's my only attraction to UCLA football. I would not want to mention any others possibly, but UCLA football. But I would love to see Syracuse succeed and it be, the 1950s or 60s all over again. Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Leroy Kelly, or the Paul Pasqualoni, Don McPherson days of the 70s and 80s into the 90s. Syracuse football. They beat Ohio State in the Hall of Fame Bowl in 91. They won a slew of bowl games throughout the 80s and 90s. And it was pretty much Donovan McNabb who was that final gasp of brilliance at Syracuse, where they went to an Orange Bowl with Donovan McNabb and played really good football. And since then, it's been 20 plus years. Bad football at Syracuse. But when they got a capable coach, they'll win 6 or 7 games, get to bowl games. Dino Babers not doing that, except for, boom, one time in 6 years. Joey Mcguire, Texas Tech, curious hire. So Texas Tech, I've talked about Mike Leach. It's one of my favorite lines in the world. Texas Tech, can you imagine Texas Tech finishing in the top 25 now? No, nobody can. Like if I told you right now, Texas Tech is going to finish in the top 25 this year, you'd be surprised. Texas Tech is pretty lousy. Mike Leach finished in the top 25 5 of his final 6 years at Texas Tech. Tommy Tuberville did not succeed there, for as much as we love Tommy Tuberville. Twitter friend. And otherwise. And then, of course, Matt Wells, Cliff Kingsbury, makes $1 zillion in the NFL, was plucked up and pursued by the Arizona Cardinals. He couldn't win at Texas Tech. Nobody's winning at Texas Tech besides Mike Leach. Okay, Joey Mcguire gets the job. He was the linebackers coach at Baylor. So this is a curious hire. Maybe he's going to do wonders. For right now, that's where I got to rate him, because Dino Babers is not getting the job done, and Joey Mcguire hasn't had a chance yet. Tony Elliott at Virginia. He was with Clemson going back to 2011, doing a bang-up job with Clemson, of course, calling the play since 2015. We'll see what he can do with his own show there at Virginia. Bronco Mendenhall, one of the class acts in college football. Bronco Mendenhall, my goodness, that dude can coach. He's an exceptional coach. And he's one of the few guys in the sport that was so good that he could excel at BYU in Virginia, Bronco Mendenhall. But when you heard him talk, you'd realize that this is one of the few guys in the sport who actually has a life, actually thinks about other things, is not obsessed with it, actually has a wife that he pays attention to, actually has a family, actually has other interests that he's expert on. Bronco Mendenhall, man, I got all the respect in the world for that guy. But he just said, okay, that's enough. I'm burned out. I'm done at Virginia. And he, of course, took Virginia football to the ACC championship. Tony Elliott's going to have the kind of quarterback that he can do something with his first year. So he gets a luxury. This is a luxury right here. Mcguire, Texas Tech doesn't have it. Elko at Duke does not have it. Pry at Virginia Tech, new coaches I'm naming in the ACC, do not have it, and elsewhere. And that's a first-rate quarterback, his first year, Brennan Armstrong, for Tony Elliott. So right now, Tony Elliott at 61. We stay in the ACC with Mike Elko of Duke, of course, most recently the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And a fine one at number 60. Let's go to Virginia Tech at number 59 and Brent Pry. Look at the defensive numbers and what he accomplished both in the recruiting aspect on the defensive side of the ball at Penn State and on the field. It's impressive. He recruited studs at Penn State. Penn State has had one of the best and most athletic defenses in the country over the past 5 years. Brent Pry is a big reason why. Now he's at Virginia Tech, and I think to listen to him, he understands his role. He understands his place. He understands what it's going to take to win, and I'm not just talking about rolling up your sleeves and working hard. He understands the landscape at Virginia Tech. We had a couple excellent live streams with our guys, Mike McDaniel and Paul Van Wagner, who work at various Virginia Tech related outlets. So check those out on our Virginia Tech channel that needs some help. We admit it, needs a lot of help, needs a lot of content, but they pumped out a couple of live streams when Brent Pry was hired that are exceptional in looking at his approach and Virginia Tech football and what's needed there. Let's go to number 58 and Clark Lee Vanderbilt. Is there a reason I've got him ranked ahead of Pry, Elko, and Elliott? They're all first-year guys. And Mcguire, I went with a number of aspects here. I'm not going to go through all of them. I've touched upon them as I've gone coach to coach. He ran the defense at Notre Dame. And if you know anything about the defensive football at Notre Dame in the past 5 to 10 years, he got those boys in the weight room, and he really tightened up both in accordance with strength and conditioning, the strength of the Notre Dame defense in regards to just physical strength, made them better athletes. And then he just tightened it up in regards to, he's one of those coaches that nothing gets past. He is a detailed-oriented coach, and that's why Notre Dame played extremely sound defensive football the last few years under Clark Lee, because he's on it. Now he goes to Vandy, and this is the difficult process of ranking. Vanderbilt's got its deal. South Carolina's got its deal. Georgia's got its deal. They're all very different in the same division. All right, this guy is 0-0, but he's mighty impressive. And after we talk about Dan Lanning, we'll check out your comments and see what you think thus far. Dan Lanning at Oregon. All right. He just got a commit from the best offensive tackle in the country, Josh Connerly out of Washington, who could have went to Miami, could have went to Michigan, could have went to Oklahoma, could have stayed at home and played for the Huskies, or gone down the coast and gone to USC and Lincoln Riley, where they really need an offensive tackle. 5-star stud Josh Connerly picked Dan Lanning in Oregon. That tells me something. It's not the reason he's number 57, but this guy was able to coach the defensive side of the ball at Georgia through a playoff game, stay another 10 days to the national championship game, all the way through from the time he was hired at Oregon the first week of December. You're talking 6 weeks. And he coached the Georgia defense. Sure, they helped him out. Other guys stepped up, of course, traveled across country, and recruited and maintained a 2022 class at Oregon that was what? The best in the Pac-12? Maybe number 2? I think number 1. Another number 1 class out of Dan Lanning, following up the 3 consecutive from Mario Cristobal. So he retained that class, and he got to know guys that he didn't know. He held on to recruits who had no idea who Dan Lanning was, and he showed up and he kept them. And he had nothing to go back on to say, you know what, I won the Big 12 championship, or I did this, or I did that. As a defensive coordinator, yeah, his past is obviously impressive, but Dan Lanning's off to a great start at Oregon. Comments and Falconer X kick it in. Appreciate that. Let me catch these super chats because those are much appreciated. Of course, super sticker. Falconer X is the master of the super sticker. There is none like him when it comes to super sticker elite status. Super sticker perfection. Falconer X, appreciate that. When I always point the wrong direction because it's opposite of what it should be. But Falconer X there, I love the avatar. The profile picture is stellar. Falconer X, appreciate it. We've got also, look at this. BGPO Football Funk, our guy DeAndre, all in. He's all in. We appreciate you, DeAndre. Hopefully we can hear you on the phone today. Looking forward to your next phone call. DeAndre, I'm telling you, I'm working on a project. Hopefully you can hear me right now. I'm working on a project right now. I'm not going to announce it. We're not close enough to completion because I don't want to announce it and then people are asking for the next 6 months where it is. But I'm working on a project that beyond anybody else have you in mind. I hope you like it. I hope I haven't built it up too much. Then you're going to be disappointed. And yes, D-Rock Irish, he remembers the 24-hour stream. Well, eggs and all. Yeah, we took you to the kitchen. This time I may plan better. Ooh, I know where I'm going to be as well. I'm probably not going to be here for the 24-hour stream. I'm probably not going to be here. I believe I'm going to be in a location where it's going to be easier for me to kind of move. I want to be able to move cameras and move around the house and take you to the kitchen. We can have a kitchen, like a breakfast making segment. Oh, it'll be phenomenal. Oh, Falconer X, double or nothing on the 48-hour live streams. If we can get Kyle Pickett in for those, that might be key to that one. All right. Then we got Falconer X back in here. Focus on the U. Where is Mario Cristobal going to be ranked? We shall see. Roger Dodger, Clay Helton, way too high on your list. Helton had a better roster in nearly all his games and still lost a lot. How many games do you think he lost, Roger Dodger? I'll tell you right now, I'm almost positive off the top of my head. He was 36-13 in the Pac-12. He didn't lose a lot. He did not meet expectations at USC, but he did not lose a lot. His full seasons at USC, 10-3, won the Rose Bowl. 11-3, lost the Cotton Bowl, won the Pac-12 championship. 5-7, 8-5, lost the Holiday Bowl. 5-1, went to the Pac-12 championship game. He went 36-13 in the Pac-12. He won 75% of his games in the Pac-12. No, that's not John Robinson or Pete Carroll or John McKay. But it's better than Steve Sarkisian. All right. Anything else from all of you thus far? And we will open up the phone lines, of course, once I reach number 1. And we all know that I'm going to rank the number 1 coach in the country, PJ Fleck. Just feels right. Tim is telling us that Jed Fish is a good coach. We shall see. He's a good coordinator on the offensive side. Exploring with Ben forgets that Dino Babers is still at Syracuse. Then again, I forget Syracuse is even in the ACC. I think the people at Syracuse forget that. Mark Thibodeau, Scott Frost is horrible. Well, we're going to see where he gets ranked in all this. Should be in the top 60. Oh, Sam does not like my UCLA slant there. Falconer X. Hey, if I can talk about UCLA and get a super chat out of Falconer X, that's a good thing. It has a very pretty uniform. They do. It's a beautiful uniform. When you put USC and UCLA in the same field at the Rose Bowl, especially when the game's at the Rose Bowl, especially not the LA Coliseum, at the Rose Bowl with the big Rose Bowl logo, and of course I am blanking on the mountain range behind the Rose Bowl, the San Gabriels. Oh, and you put those two uniforms on the same field. It's the best sight in college football. All right. Anybody else on my rankings up to number 57 with Dan Lanning? Yes, Sam. Bronco Mendenhall. My goodness, the guy's impressive. Yes. And what a name. It's a great name. Yeah, Dennis lets us know right here. And I can't think of when I've watched a coach's final press conference when he has left that I've watched it from start to finish. I watched Bronco Mendenhall's. Like, I couldn't get enough of it. I watched the whole thing, and then I looked for other interviews. Just took it in. Yes, he was burned out, but he did not slam the door on coaching long term. He still loves it. And when you can do what he did and keep some semblance of a life, also focus on the improvement and the progression and development of the young men and still win, it's impressive. Dave, Mike Leach is one of those guys. Also a huge tool Yeah, I don't know if I would want to hang out with Mike Lee. I would want to be maybe in the same party with Mike Leach and like mingle and talk to him and hear him spout off and say stupid things for about 15 or 20 minutes and then move on. Having varied interest does not preclude it. Thanks, Joey. Yeah, we don't have Dan Mullen around to rank this year. Good to see everybody here. Roger is already telling me he believes that I'm going to rank Dabo Swinney too high. Roger, let's give Dabo the right respect and spell his name correctly. Swinney. Sorry, Dennis. Too many milk toast adjectives for Dennis. Dennis, we've had this back and forth before. Watch someone you like to hear analysis from. Watch them. That's what I would do. Just my choice. Falconer X, there he is. Mario Cristobal at Miami had a closed practice Saturday, current and former players only. Based on some inside info, Miami will be an insane improvement this year. I almost ran a poll today. I was watching the Pitt spring game from Saturday. I had it on while I was working because I've DVR'd all the spring games. And I threw in the Pitt game, and I thought they got a lot coming back. 9 on offense, 7 on defense. Keaton Slovis at quarterback, most likely. There's a quarterback competition at Pitt. It's not just Slovis by default. Nick Patty played pretty well in the bowl game. No. Nick Patty, I believe, was the guy who took over for Kenny Pickett, but then he broke his collarbone and the third stringer came in. Anyway, they like Nick Patty, but I'm not going to discount Pitt, and I will not discount North Carolina in the ACC Coastal Division. I probably do too many Miami live streams and hear too much Miami propaganda from all of you fine folks, and I love it, and I love for you to be here, of course. I can't let it sway me too much in my objective analysis of who's going to come out of the Coastal Division because, yeah, Miami's probably got the best roster, but Pitt and North Carolina will have something to say about it. At least those two. Thank you, Falconer X. Appreciate that. 10:01. I always look forward to seeing the monetary amounts there. Preach! I'm preaching, Mikey G. Oh, I think that was the Dan Lanning segment there. Okay, Harry's telling me that we can't rank any first-time head coaches who have not coached a single game. I get your point. I'm still doing it. I'm doing it based on what they've done since they got the job. What does the recruiting look like? So that's a big part of the job. How are they trending in recruiting? They haven't proven anything yet. No, they just retained a class in 2022, and they're working toward 2023. But I look at a guy like Dan Lanning and what he did with the Georgia defense as well. So it's one way to do it. That's how I'm doing it. Joey is waiting for Neil Brown to pop up here. Studio Live next year. Hey, Mark, where's that project? Watch party. We've got more watch party action coming up this Saturday. Let me organize the schedule because we've got Ohio State and Miami playing at the same time. We've got Georgia and Alabama pretty much playing at the same time. A lot to figure out. So we will be live as we were this past Saturday from noon to 7 p.m. We'll be live this Saturday all day, looking dapper. You know, I have all these shirts that I used to wear on a daily basis at the mothership, and now they don't get much use. So I jumped out of the shower and I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw that shirt on. Brian Harson, number 1. Absolutely. Don't give it away now. All right. Anything else in here? Oh, Joey's speaking my language. Joey knows what keeps this thing going. We know that at least half of you shop on Amazon. Half of America shops on Amazon, so half of you probably shop on Amazon. When you do, please, please don't forget us. Grab the link in the description section of any of the videos. If you go to any video, grab the link that says Amazon in caps. Grab the link, put it somewhere where you will remember it, and shop Amazon. Doesn't cost you a penny. You're going to be charged the same exact amount of money, but we get a few pennies. It's the same shopping experience. If you use your link, my link, whatever you use, enter Amazon using that link, and it helps us build the channel. Wholesome One. We'll see you on Thursday night. Every Thursday night with the Wholesome One at 8 Eastern on the Miami channel. Bam. We love the Wholesome One. Falcon Racks, thank you so much for that. If I'm watching USC UCLA, all I see is nice white sweaters. I kind of alluded to that. All right. Let's get to the rest of the rankings here. You'll never know. Back to the rankings. Landing at 57. Karl Dorrell had a nice first season in Colorado, only coached 6 games, but went 4-2. Now this past season, they went 4-8. And if he is not working overtime on how to generate some type of offense, then he's not doing his job. Colorado had the worst offense in the Power 5 last year. Karl Dorrell actually had a decent stint at UCLA as well. He was there for quite some time. Let's see, 24-18 in the Pac-12, so that's 42 games. He was there for something like 5 seasons in the Pac-12 and went, 12 or 14 games over 500. Karl Dorrell at Colorado at 56. Okay, Justin Wilcox at Cal has been disappointing. He's young guy, had just a remarkable run of defensive performances at various stops, most notably Wisconsin. Then he goes to Cal. He fixes the defense, but he did not retain the offensive prowess that Sonny Dykes established. So you got Sonny Dykes, the offensive guru. And when he was there, Jared Goff, they scored a ton of points. They couldn't stop anyone. Dykes leaves. Justin Wilcox takes over the defense, and Cal can play some defense. They can't score. And he's 15-25 in the Pac-12. 15-25 in that lousy conference. Not good. Justin Wilcox has had a extended stay in the Pac-12, and it's just not getting done. An impressive sample size turned in by Jake Dickert of Washington State, considering the circumstances. So we can just look at the record and be done with it, 3-3. No. Think of the circumstances. He was hired as defensive coordinator. He had been there for 1 year. Then Washington State and Nick Rolovich over COVID and vaccinations went head-to-head, and we know what happened there. Washington State wins. Nick Rolovich, you're gone. And he had a number of his coaching staff who also would not be vaccinated. They were gone in the middle of the season. This didn't happen in May. It happened right in the middle of the season. Jake Dickert goes from defensive coordinator to head coach in the middle of the season. So that happens from time to time. It happened at USC this year, middle of the season. It happened at Texas Tech, middle of the season. But Jake Dickert, it happened to him, and other assistant coaches left. He had to piece together a team in the middle of a game week. And he went 3-2 in the regular season. Lost the bowl game to Western Michigan. Jake Dickert at 54 at Washington State. Here's a curious one right here. Number 53 is Mike Norvell at Florida State. We know that he can run a top-notch group of 5 program. He did it at Memphis. So let's understand there's differences between coaches who do a nice job with a good program. They walk into a good situation. Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, they're at the top of the list. But even in places like Memphis, App State, look at that procession of coaches at App State. They just kind of roll through and they all do a good job. Boise State. Houston Nutt originally built Boise State football. And everybody since then, Chris Peterson, Dan Hawkins, Brian Harson, they've all gone through and done a nice job. But they kind of just rode along what was built. Barry Alvarez, Wisconsin. Barry Alvarez made Wisconsin football. Well, Brett Bielema, Gary Anderson, and now Paul Christ all did a nice job. All finished in the top 15 in the country, went to Big Ten championship games, went to big bowl games, did all those things, top 15, but they didn't build it. So I give a lot of credit to guys that built programs. Justin Fuente, despite his failures at Virginia Tech, he built the recent Memphis run. Memphis was awful. Justin Fuente elevated Memphis. Mike Norvell benefited from that. So he did not build Memphis, but he did a nice job at Memphis. Now he goes to Florida State. Willie Taggart left the program pretty much as you can leave a Florida State roster in shambles. Willie Taggart did it. Now, of course, he had talent to work with to a certain extent because the Florida State's always in the top 15 to 20 in recruiting rankings. So, but just by all indications, just a mess at Florida State that Mike Norvell had to face. 3-6, 5-7. They lost to Jacksonville State after a great showing against Notre Dame, in which they lost, 41-38 on opening night. Then, there was so much hope after the Notre Dame game. Then they thud against Jacksonville State. Then they lost 2 other games. I know Wake Forest was in there and somebody else, maybe Louisville. They were 0-4, and they came this close to losing to Syracuse. That close. It was a tight game. If they would have lost to Syracuse to go to 0-5, I don't know if he would have recovered. They saved the Miami game 4th and 14. They won some other decent ball games. They beat North Carolina. That was impressive. They needed to beat Florida at the end of the year to really close out what would have been a feel-good season. 6-6. We got to a bowl game, but they lost the game against Florida. Mike Norvell still working his way through Florida State, but good returns during the offseason. He had a good recruiting class. Of course, he lost Travis Hunter. Not his fault. Could have been a great recruiting class. Turned out to be a good one. Mike Norvell of Florida State at 53. Lance Leopold did a fine job at Buffalo. Now he's got the task above tasks, the mountain to climb at Kansas. Went 2-10 his first year. That's what you would expect. Beat Texas. That says more about Steve Sarkisian in Texas than it does about Kansas and Lance Leopold, but scored 50 points and beat Texas. And Kansas played some pretty good football down the stretch. They beat Texas. They had Oklahoma on the ropes. And they had a few other good showings here. Let's see. They only lost to West Virginia in the finale 34-28. They only lost to TCU 31-28. They beat Texas 57-56. This is a pretty good showing. Kansas is terrible. What Les Miles did at Kansas, just hopefully the Kansas knuckleheads have learned their lesson. You don't go through a retread, and especially a non-character scumbag type like Les Miles type retread. That's not the way to build a football program. This is the way to build a football program. Clarence Leopold from Buffalo. So again, they win the out-of-conference game against South Dakota late in the season. They win against Texas. And again, in amongst the typical Kansas stompings, to play Oklahoma to the wide. They were winning against Oklahoma early fourth quarter. And yeah, they got their butts kicked a number of times. Iowa State 59-7, Oklahoma State 55-3. Yes, the typical Kansas showings, but down the stretch, they got so much better. Their last 3 games were legit Big 12. They played, they competed. Lance Leopold off to a good start at Kansas. Forget 2-10. All right. Scott Frost at Nebraska. The reason I've got Scott Frost this high, basically 2 things. I cannot forget what he did at UCF. He took over a program that was 0-12. 0-12. And he went 13-0 and beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl. An Auburn team that beat Alabama and Georgia. So let's not forget that. I know it was a long time ago. In football years, it was an eternity, 5 years ago. And also, let's remember, you can't do this. Forget the scoreboard. But watch Nebraska play last year. Man, they're close. They're close to now. Delusional Nebraska fans would tell you, oh, well, they're close from going to 3-9, and they could have won all those games to 10-2. No, they're not close to 10-2 in the Big Ten. But they're also close to 6-6 or 7-5. They gave Ohio State a great game. Oklahoma, Michigan State. They should have beat Michigan State. They didn't give up a first down in the second half against Michigan State. Scott Frost has made a couple tactical errors there, not having a special teams coach and allowing that just to be the worst unit in the country practically. That was dumb. And if you watch this team play, there was one particular game they played against Minnesota where I just listed the number of tactical errors in the second half against Minnesota, and I just ripped Frost. That was dumb. That was dumb. That was dumb. You'd have to go back and look at the video because I can't remember exactly. But it made no sense when they went for it on fourth down and when they did not go for it on fourth down. It's just the logic in the play calling and the determinations of when to go for it and when not to go for it at that position on the field with that much time left and the score made no sense. Scott Frost took over a Nebraska team that had fallen into this Mike Riley, country club kind of thing. And he's laid the wood to it in regards to discipline and kicking some people in the rear and weeding out the garbage. Nebraska fans, we're going to make you feel good. We've got loyal Nebraska fans here that support our channel. Let's put Nebraska right there. That there's some good things there. But, man, an undisciplined football team. The recruiting's not great, but the recruiting's tough. This is the toughest place to recruit to that has a high expectation. Toughest place to recruit in the nation. It's the toughest. And my lighting's messed up, and it just is kind of annoying me. So Scott Frost at 51. We'll see what he can do this year. I'm guessing they're going to start to win some games. When you have the worst one-score record in America and you just got the job, maybe you've coached for a year or two, there could be some dumb luck there. There could be some bad luck. For Scott Frost, 2018, 19, 20, 4 seasons. No, it's bad coaching. It's mostly bad coaching. He's had some bad luck, but it's mostly bad coaching. It's mostly bad coaching. So we'll see what he can do this year. Frost at 51. I could talk about the Nebraska situation all day. Some of these programs I hit on, I could talk all day. I could talk about Florida State and their issues. I could talk about Nebraska forever and etc. Mike Locksley at Maryland. I don't know why he got this job. I don't know why he is the head coach at Maryland, but he is, because he did nothing to get this job. Accomplished nothing. Had a horrible run in New Mexico. Or New Mexico State. I get them confused. I think they both are located in New Mexico. The Lobos and the Aggies. He was with one of them. And he was horrible. And in addition to that, he run amok off the field. He had 2 major incidents off the field. And he gets a Big Ten job? Okay, he's there. Regardless of how he got the job, he's there. He's recruiting pretty well. And Maryland was improved last year, but don't let the 7-6 record fool you. 3-6 in the Big Ten, won a bunch of lousy non-conference games. They did beat West Virginia, decent team. But man, they are still a long ways away from the top of the Big Ten East. They still get clocked. I mean, clocked by the best teams in the Big Ten. Still get murdered. Mike Locksley at 50. All right. Let's get to our top 50. I will open my other folder here. And here we go. Number 49, Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Last year was an unmitigated disaster. Awful. Okay, it wasn't always awful on the field. It was awful on the scoreboard and in the standings at 5-7. 3-6 in the Big 12 and lost to Kansas, as we just talked about. And after I get done with Sark, I'll go to the comments. Steve Sarkisian didn't do a horrible job at Washington or at USC, but he had 2 huge jobs. USC, a top 5 to 10 job in the country. Washington, a top 15 or 20 job in the country. He didn't do well at either one. Not a disaster, but his predecessors and his successors did better than him at both jobs. What he did, and I said this at the time when he was hired at Texas, much like Mike Locksley, what did he do to get this job? Play call with Devontae Smith and Mac Jones and those freaks? I could do that. Big deal. He matched up Devontae Smith on linebackers. And I don't get it. I don't get it. So here he is. He just brought in a top 5 recruiting class. Should we credit him for that? To a certain extent. But doesn't everybody bring in a top 5 class? Charlie Strong, Tom Herman? Yes. At Texas. Last season was awful. But it was close to being really good. They were 4-1. They were playing Oklahoma. They were up by 3 touchdowns at half. They were on their way. And the one loss was to Arkansas outside the conference. So they were undefeated in the conference. They were a half away from beating Oklahoma, of course, the king of the conference. And they would have been in prime position at 5-1 to get to the Big 12 championship game. And they just collapsed after that. The next couple of weeks, they played a really good, strong game against Oklahoma. They didn't collapse the next week. They came out strong against Oklahoma State, outplayed them and lost the game in the 4th quarter. Same thing against Iowa State. Game was like 10-7 at halftime. They got blown out. Lost 6 consecutive games. They did rally for him in the finale. I was surprised against Kansas State and beat a decent team. So we'll see. Sark, he's got a big decision to make between Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers. That's going to be huge. You got to think that he wants to start Ewers because of obviously his number 1 status as a recruit, to keep him happy and to keep him. Sark at 49. Stay in the Big 12. There's your guy, Joey. Neil Brown at number 48. I take into consideration, even though this is a current ranking, you obviously have to look at the past because this is what shows us how good these guys are. And Neil Brown, yes, his West Virginia tenure is not off to a great start. 3 seasons. He had a decent COVID year at 6-4. They won a bowl game. But last year, the offense was awful. It was one of the worst offenses in the Power 5. But on the flip side, they went 6-6 because it was one of the best defenses in the Big 12. One of the worst offenses in the Power 5. One of the best defenses in the Big 12. We'll put them in the top 4. Not close to Oklahoma State and Baylor, but on the next tier. Neil Brown, find a quarterback. You got to recruit a quarterback. You got to get one in the transfer portal. Man, if he gets JT Daniels, he has upgraded his quarterback room substantially. Get JT Daniels, Neil Brown. If you get JT Daniels, you could go 8-4 this year. If you don't, I don't see you going 8-4. I think it's going to be another 5 or 6 win season for you. So Neil Brown did a phenomenal job at Troy. Check out the numbers at Troy. Look at before Neil Brown, and then Neil Brown went like 35-13 at Troy. All right, at number 47, we got Scott Satterfield of Louisville, and I will get to the comments. Bobby Petrino ran amok again. Whoever hires that guy again, where is he? He went to some FCS school, right? Anyway, Bobby Petrino, again, runs amok at Louisville for the Louisville. Any self-respect? Do you have any self-respect? This dude ditched you in a horrible way. It's not like he just left. Guys leave jobs to go to better jobs. I get it. But he dissed you, disrespected the program, and you bring him back? Anyway, Bobby Petrino leaves Louisville at 2-10, 0-8 in the conference. And Scott Satterfield, boop, comes in from App State, turns it around, 8-5. Good showing in the bowl game, beat Mississippi State. It looks like Louisville. People are high on Louisville, including me. I was a little more tempered. If you look at my rankings going into 2020, people were super high on Louisville. Shoot, the freaking ESPN FPI gave them an 87% chance of beating Miami in the second game of the season. And I'm like, well, that's idiotic. Makes no sense. But since then, shoot, Louisville, what? 3-7? No, 4-7, 6-7. Scott Satterfield, it's a huge year for you in 2022. All right, we get to the comments here. See where we stand. This is the first time I've ever seen Katrina here. We appreciate you being here, Katrina. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Would love to know, Katrina, who do you root for? And we're taking a count at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, so you can let us know there. That would be great, because I'm tallying up the count of the 34,000 strong here. But appreciate you being here. And everybody else, we see James and Cheryl's here. Dennis, does Brett Bielema crack the top 25 in this ranking? Dennis, stay tuned. Dave has Harbaugh top 10. Stay tuned. Yes, exploring with Ben. Kansas was mighty feisty. Yes, we talked about the TCU game, 31-28 against Kansas. As Mikey says here, what has Sark done to win these jobs? Serious question. I don't think I remember him winning any big games. No, he didn't win big games at USC or Washington. He won 60% of his games. He won 55 or 60% of his games. That's not good enough at either one of those schools. But then he gets Texas. Falcon Rex is keeping up with my pace here. Only 6.5 hours left. Well, we can't do that. But Dennis, Mike Loxley, laughed my ass off. Wish I could have commented earlier, but I can only listen while driving. Okay. You didn't like my Mike Loxley at number 50? James telling us that Sark's too high at 49. Where should he be? He was not a disaster at Washington or USC. It's not like he was going 5-7 at USC and Washington. He was going 8-4, 7-5 range. And now he's got his first year in Texas. And I usually give guys a break on their first year because there's a lot to change. There's a lot to implement. Guys got to get to know each other. You're trying to win over 105 players that don't know you. So I give coaches typically a break, but considering the talent and the schedule, you should have done better than 5-7. All right. I don't see anything else I need to hit here. Wholesome One, good to see you, man. Hey, Mark, you're amazing at this. This is what I love to do, Wholesome One. I appreciate that. I agree so much on Kansas and Nebraska, scrappy teams that fought their arse off. All right, back to the rankings. Where'd we leave you? Satterfield at 47. Chris Kleinman, Kansas State at 46. And I refuse to mention Kansas State football. I refuse to say anything about Kansas State football without mentioning the name Bill Snyder. Man, what a job that guy did. If we named the all-time greatest coaches in college football, we would all start with guys that have won multiple national championships. I get it. That's the ultimate prize. This is how we rank people in sports. Bill Snyder did not come really close to winning a national championship. He did have his flirtations with getting to a BCS championship game, of course, in 1998 and other times. But Kansas State, people, Kansas State, Bill Snyder took over a program. Go through Kansas State. There are, it's one of my favorite sites. It's called Historical Scores. And I believe it now is no longer functioning because they don't update it anymore. So that's unfortunate. But it's got every team, every score in history. So you can just kind of go through Kansas State football. Just run through the records in the 60s and 70s and 80s before Bill Snyder. It's unbelievable how bad they were. Like 1-10, 1-10, 1-10, 2-9, 2-9, yeah. He shows up. Took him a few years. They're suddenly respectable. Then they're competing for national titles at Kansas State. Guess what? Bill Snyder left, handed it over to Ron Prince. Ron Prince, program goes down, immediately goes down. Bill Snyder comes back. The old man comes back, says, let me take over. We used to do a Big 12 show. We called it Big 12 Breakdown on Wednesday nights. I'm sure none of you were around to see Big 12. We used to do 3 consecutive hour shows on Wednesday nights. ACC Breakdown, Big 12 Breakdown, Pac-12 Breakdown. Whole lot of fun. And my Big 12 folks always called Bill Snyder the Purple Wizard. And the Purple Wizard came back after the 3 down years. And guess what? They started winning again. Now, not to the level that they did in the late 90s and early 2000s, but again, he's humming along 8-4, 9-3 seasons. All right, back to Chris Kleinman. He is the current coach at the team. He's off to a decent start. You know, Kansas State, they won a bowl game against LSU. They finished, 8-5? They did lose to Texas. But, you know, it looks like Chris Kleinman, and Chris Kleinman won 5 national championships. He went 69-6. Why that sticks in my brain, I don't know. At North Dakota State. So Chris Kleinman knows how to run a program, and he's in a situation where he is going to, from a talent perspective, probably routinely have the 8th or 9th worst roster in the Big 12. But he is showing that he knows the Kansas State way, and Kansas State, credit the university. They hired a Bill Snyder clone, a guy like Bill Snyder in this way, a guy that would be able to come in and grind and field a team that's fundamentally sound, that's tough as hell, that's gritty, that can get it done. They're continuing the Bill Snyder regime under Chris Kleinman. He is fielding similar teams. Got quarterbacks they're almost like fullbacks running that offense. They are tough to play. Nobody likes to play them. And he's coming off 8-5. Chris Kleinman at Kansas State at 46. Sonny Dykes just had a nice run at SMU that set him up for this TCU job. Of course, he's taking over for one of the very best in Gary Patterson. And I always had Gary Patterson ranked extremely high. Always had Gary Patterson ranked extremely high. Impressed with him. He built the program phenomenal for 20 plus years at TCU. Sonny Dykes, nice run at SMU. Failed at Cal. We talked about that earlier. Jared Goff, the offense was fine. Playmakers, he can scheme an offense. He just could not fix the defense. He could not find the coordinator to fix the defense. TCU, under Gary Patterson, has been one of the tremendous programs in college football, but down since about 2019. The last 3 seasons at TCU have not been good. Be interesting to see if Sonny Dykes can elevate a program. I got him at 45. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Nope, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say anything about playing to win the games. Nope, not going to say it. Herm Edwards at 44. He was hired. People made fun of it. This dude's a TV analyst. He played in the NFL. Herm Edwards is I hope all of you know, is at the center of one of the great plays, one of the iconic plays in the history of the NFL. Go look it up, 1978 at the Meadowlands. Scored one of the great touchdowns that sent the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs for the first time, I believe, in 12 years at the time, 1978. All right. Herm Edwards gets hired, and I questioned it. I thought, okay, he coached in the NFL last about 10, 11 years ago. He's never coached in college. How is this going to happen? Can he relate? Oh, man, the dude he is a natural communicator, inspires people, inspires young men, can connect. He can connect with, he's probably got 15 years on me, something like that, at least. No, he's older than me. Something like that anyway. He can connect with young men better than I can, that's for sure. He's just a natural communicator and inspirer. Inspirational motivator. Okay, but you got to win. You took over the program, and as soon as he went, there was so much skepticism, including from me. I had to see it first. That as soon as he went like 7-5 a couple times, people were like, "Oh, wow, Arizona State." Well, that's what Arizona State does anyway. You can put anybody. Todd Graham did better than that. People just didn't like Todd Graham. But in terms of winning, Todd Graham went to a Pac-12 championship. He went 10-3 a couple times. Todd Graham did pretty well there. Herm Edwards seems like a better coach, but he's not winning. So this past season was 8-5. Decent. So he's doing a marginal job in terms of wins and losses. He lost his quarterback, and he let either he was involved in that issue with recruiting players during that COVID ban. So we haven't heard the end of that. We don't know what the fallout's going to be. They fired Antonio Pierce as the defensive coordinator, so he's out. We don't know if Herm Edwards was involved in that or had no idea, and just there was a lack of institutional control, possibly, or if Herm Edwards was involved in that, that could be the end of his job. We shall see. Herm Edwards, Arizona State at 44. Fascinating situation there. Kalen DeBoer did a fine job at Fresno State. He's an offensive mind. What do they need in Washington right now? Well, they had one of the worst offenses in college football. They were horrendous. If you had trouble sleeping on a Saturday night last season, you needed to watch Washington's football. Like, it was like watching a high school passing offense. It was deplorable. And Jimmy Lake, I thought he was the guy. I thought that was a good selection, especially since he was handpicked by Chris Peterson. But Jimmy Lake, great defensive mind, defensive coordinator, didn't do anything with the offense, couldn't find the right guy to run the offense, and then he did stupid things off the field, and he's gone. Okay, Kalen DeBoer, good selection by Washington here. They go to Fresno State, proven coach. Fresno State, shoot, they're kind of like the BYU of the West Coast in regards to being able to play from outside the Pac-12 and beat teams in the Pac-12. And so Kalen DeBoer takes over at Washington, and Washington has shown ever since Don James made them a power, you can win big at Washington. Rose Bowls, national championships, as recently as 2016, getting to a college football playoff under Chris Peterson, 2017, getting to a Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl in 2018. That's how recent it's been that Washington went to the Rose Bowl, won the Pac-12, 2018. You can win at Washington and win big. Kalen DeBoer, you're up. All right, at number 42, Brian Harson. Some people are going to be like, Brian Harson, he should be off the charts in a bad way. All right, calm down. Okay, Brian Harson. Let's understand. I know he's not coaching at Boise State anymore. Say that 5 times fast. Brian Harson is no longer the coach at Boise State. He did go 69-19. He didn't build Boise State. Everybody else wins at Boise State, so he didn't do anything remarkable there. But he won just like everybody else. So he showed he's a capable coach at that level. Okay, he goes to Auburn. That's a whole different deal in the SEC. Yeah. Don't get too high on Gus Malzahn's run at Auburn. It wasn't that good. He had the high point of getting to a BCS championship game, and he had the high point of an SEC championship game in 2017. But he barely finished over 500 in the conference. Okay. Brian Harson, I picked him to go 6-6. With that schedule, they played one of the toughest schedules in college football. They had a date at Penn State, and they had the SEC West to deal with in Georgia. I picked him to go 6-6. I went 6-6. Okay. It wasn't a pretty 6-6 because they didn't go like back and forth with wins and losses. No, they started 6-2. Then they lost 5 consecutive games, including the bowl game, and that looks bad. That's a bad look, 6-7. But man, he didn't have half his defense in the bowl game against a good Houston team, and he lost his quarterback, Bo Nix, with a 25-point lead against Mississippi State. Did you see Alabama-Auburn last year? Did you see how inspired that team was, Auburn? Coached a pretty good game there. If Tank Bigsby keeps the running play in bounds and does not go out of bounds against Alabama, they win the game. They beat Alabama. So it wasn't all bad at Auburn. They beat Arkansas by 2 touchdowns. They beat LSU. They beat Ole Miss. It wasn't all bad at Auburn during the season. Let's stick to the season for a second. Okay. Now, ever since they stepped off the field against Houston, everything's been bad. Derek Mason took off, and he's a respected guy in college football. Derek Mason is top-notch. Defensive coordinator, of course, we know him from Stanford and Vandy. So that's not a good look when you lose your defensive coordinator at a place like Auburn. He goes to Oklahoma State, which I consider at least a lateral move, maybe a step down. And he takes a $300,000 pay cut. That doesn't look good. You lose some players in the transfer portal. People made too much of a big deal out of that. Everybody's losing players in the transfer portal. The offensive coordinator, that was a curious situation, losing him. There are all sorts of rumors out there, but Brian Harson fought for his job. He was this close to getting fired, and he fought for his job. He's got a big decision at quarterback between TJ Finley, Zach Calzada, and the baseball player from Oregon, Robbie Ashford. He'll probably go with Calzada once he gets healthy, and Calzada was marginal at Texas A&M, so he does not have an answer at quarterback right now. He does not have of course, Bryce Young. He doesn't even have Stetson Bennett at quarterback. He doesn't have a winning SEC quarterback. That's going to be a problem. And he's got to face another schedule that's brutal. Auburn has to face Georgia every year. They're the only team in the West that has to play Georgia every year. It's not an easy deal at Auburn. You got to hear about Alabama every day of the year. You're in the same state, but you're expected to win. And Auburn basically won a national championship in 2004. I know that it's not listed, but and they got back there and won the national championship in 2010. Cam Newton, Gene Chizik, of course, and then got back within 7 seconds of beating Florida State and winning it again in 2013. So it's a program that has had high highs, and it's been a roller coaster unlike any other program in the country. Brian Harson at 42. Okay, give him a chance. We'll see. At number 41, Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou. So nothing he has done on the field since taking over Mizzou. 5-5, then 6-7 these 2 seasons has impressed me. And he needs to find a quarterback and find him quick. He lost his quarterback to Indiana, Connor Basilek. He's in the JT Daniels sweepstakes. I don't know what it is, but former App State coaches have gone to the Power 5 level, Satterfield and Drinkwitz, and they can't coach defense, and they can't find a defensive coordinator that can be effective. Mizzou's defense and Missouri, since they joined the SEC, had a stout defense under Gary Pinkel and then Barry Odom. And they've been trash on defense. They're awful. Gave up like 500 yards rushing to Tennessee, 62 points. Okay. So Eli Drinkwitz is this high. So Barry Odom had a better record than Eli Drinkwitz, and he got fired. So Drinkwitz, you got to think, is on the hot seat to a certain extent. Eli Drinkwitz is a fun listen. Have you seen the guy interviewed? Eli Drinkwitz he seems like he might be the number one guy on this list that you'd want to hang out with. There are probably funnier guys, but you would get annoyed with them, and there'd be the kind of arrogant jerks that after a while you'd be like, okay, you were funny for 5 minutes, now go. But he just seems like a legitimately like fun guy. Like the non-SEC kind of coach, like, again, I'm thinking about this stuff nonstop. No, like he's got a life and he thinks about other things and he's interested in other things. So he's a fun interview. He seems like a great guy. And he brought in the number 12 recruiting class in the country. So I've been not impressed with the 2 seasons on the field, but number 12 recruiting class. Eli Drinkwitz at 41 out of Mizzou. Okay, this is an impossible ranking, so gear up for this one. People are going to go crazy. But where do you rank this guy right now? Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame. Okay. So I ranked a lot of other first-year head coaches down the list, but I've got a little more faith in Marcus Freeman because he was stellar at Cincinnati as DC. And, man, this guy can hold a room. Does that win football games? Well, it could. It's a element. You gotta. He connects with young men. They love him. They were so excited when he got the job. So excited. He's going to be a much different coach than Brian Kelly. And I don't just mean that in a positive way. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying different. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. He held together that recruiting class that finished number 4 in the country in December. Don't hold the bowl game loss against him. They played a top 5 team in the country. It was not his team at the time. Sure, he came in as the defensive coordinator, of course, to head coach. So again, this is a difficult placement here because, of course, 0-0 is the record, or 0-1 with a bowl game loss. Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame at 40. All right, let's check out some comments. I expect that to shake some people up. But he has yet to prove anything. He's going to get to prove something mighty early. They've got a game, I think, in Columbus, Ohio, that might show us something. All right, here we go. Mikey G is telling me my logic does not stack up. Freeman is not good DC. Lanning, not saying Freeman is not intriguing, just on paper Lanning is better than Freeman. Okay, why is Lanning better than Freeman on paper? That doesn't make sense. I'm not disagreeing with you that you can question my ranking, but why is Lanning better than Freeman? Because he had better players at Georgia? Is that it? Okay. Yes, Joey. Be honest, Mark. Well, yeah, I'm always honest. So that can go without being stated. That doesn't have to be stated. Anyway, I always love when people say, I'm being honest with you here. Okay. I would hope that we're all honest all the time. So, yeah. The fact that Marcus Freeman is at Notre Dame played a hand in your rankings. Yeah, it did. If he was coaching Oregon State year one, you would have ranked him in the 50s or the 60s. I don't know. But yeah, that's what's difficult about these rankings. They're all at different schools. They're at different schools with different resources, with different expectations, with different recruiting footprints. Some of them have massive budgets and others have limited budgets. It's an imperfect process, ranking coaches, even ranking the players. They're not batters in baseball. They don't just come up to the plate. And I know serious baseball fans would argue, okay, the order, the batting order could affect you and how you're pitched and all that. Put that away. You basically stand at the plate, and if you're good, you have a good batting average and stats, and if you're not good, you don't. It's not that. Every position, whether that be coach or players on the field, are impacted heavily by the players around them, and for coaches by the institutions in which they coach. Yeah. All right. Craig would like a raised hand. Yeah. Okay. All right. Tim, Freeman should be at the top of the list of unproven head coaches. Dude is going to recruit the lights out, and we know he is a great defensive mind. Okay. I think that's about where I've got him. I am looking for comments that are related to what we just talked about. I don't see anything here or any super chats that need to be answered. So let's keep it moving. All right. So yes, let's just sit on this one for a minute. Marcus Freeman, number 40. I bet that if I had all of you rank all the coaches, that there would be the greatest disparity on Marcus Freeman than probably any other coach, because of course he hasn't coached. So you could say, I think Marcus Freeman's going to be amazing. I'll put him at number 5 or number 12. Or you could say, you know what? He hasn't coached yet. So he goes to the bottom along with everybody else. And I'll just put him in some kind of order at the bottom. And that's fine. That's a way to approach it. I rank coaches who have yet to coach as a head coach above coaches who are not doing a good job, because I consider their performance right now to be neutral. It's 0 as a head coach, but there are indications based on the job that they've done as a coordinator or the job that they've done in the first 3 or 4 months as a recruiter, as a head coach, for me to rank them. But it's basically neutral. So I don't rank the first-year guys at the bottom. Dino Babers is not getting the job done. Jeff Collins sucks right now. I'm not going to rank them higher than guys that have done nothing, that haven't proven it. I'm going to rank those guys above guys that suck. That's how I approach it. You know, if I had if I had 10 salespeople on my staff and 8 of them were either really good to amazing and 2 of them sucked, but I kept them around because I needed 10 salespeople. And then I hired 2 salespeople who had tremendous resumes, who talked a good game. We had a great interview. They, on paper, great resume, and it could be confirmed. We know what their resume is. They didn't make it up. And then somebody asked me, are those 2 salespeople that you hired better than the 2 people that suck? I'd say, I think they are. Because I know these 2 prove that they suck. They're horrible. I just hired 2 that their resumes say they're good. They haven't worked for me yet, but their resumes say they're good. So yes, I'm going to rank them ahead of the 2 guys that suck. All right. At number 39, Chip Kelly, UCLA. You talk about 2 different careers here. Chip Kelly, circa 2012, 10 years ago, he's in the top 3 or 4 in the country. Chip Kelly, if it was just UCLA, I'd rank him 5 to 10 spots lower, because I'm still going to give him some type of credit for what he accomplished at Oregon. And I don't think he's given enough credit from what I hear out of people, because he did not win a national championship. It's all about, with some people, national championship. Okay. He took a good Oregon program and he made it elite. Now, what was his number one calling card? Of course, it was an innovative offense with offensive lines that we have not seen or did not see prior to Chip Kelly. These lean, mean, fast, athletic offensive lines that could get out there in space, and it's impressive. He was way ahead of the curve, and teams could not keep up with him unless they were named LSU, Ohio State. Well, with NFL rosters. He went 33-3 in the Pac-12 when the Pac-12 was much better. When the Pac-12 had a legit USC, a legit Stanford, had good teams. He went 33-3 in the Pac-12, and he came within a crazy play in the national championship game by Michael Dyer of winning the national championship. Okay, that was Chip Kelly then. We know that his offense is no longer the thing. It looks like everybody else's offense. And we know that he's not a great recruiter. He is coming off a decent season. I don't want to overplay his season. So his first 2 years at UCLA were horrendous. Actually his first 3 seasons, 2 full seasons, 3-9, 4-8. Horrible. And he inherited a pretty good roster. Jim Mora left him with top 15 recruiting classes. Jim Mora recruited well at UCLA. Ironically, I've done the research on this. Chip Kelly, from a rank, if you believe in the recruiting rankings, inherited a roster at UCLA that was comparable almost exactly to the roster that he inherited and recruited himself at Oregon. His first 2 years were awful. They were substantially better in 2020, in the COVID year. Forget the record. I know you'll look it up, 3-4, but they were a lot better. And then this past year, they were better, but let's not get too excited about 8-4, because they beat 8 bad teams and they lost to 4 decent teams. They didn't beat anybody but they were this close to even doing more damage. They lost to Fresno State on some crazy plays in the final 40 seconds of the game. So Chip Kelly here in 2022, this is a big year for him. And he's got a quarterback in the system in DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's been there forever. He should have a stellar season. If Chip Kelly has taught him anything, developed him at all, he should have a big season. Chip Kelly at 39. At 38, Jonathan Smith. If you believe in advanced metrics, Jonathan Smith inherited one of the worst football teams in the last 3 decades of college football. On offense and defense, if you look at recruiting rankings and then also the productivity at the school, he inherited a horrendous situation. And Oregon State last year went 7-5 and went to a bowl game. And he's probably maxed it out. I don't know that he can do much better there than he's done, but Jonathan Smith can coach. And fortunately for Oregon State, he may want to stay there. He may not be the typical guy that's a hot shot coming up through the group of 5 or some big-time coordinator who just, hey, wants a Power 5 job, but I'm going to win in 3 years, and then, boom, I'm leaving Oregon State, and I'm going to go to TCU or Wisconsin or somewhere. He may want to stay there. He's an Oregon State guy. He was a legendary quarterback there, won a Fiesta Bowl, finished number 3 in the country at Oregon State. Yes, people can't believe that. Number 3 in the nation at Oregon State, Fiesta Bowl, 11-1. So anyway, Jonathan Smith, Oregon State may have found their guy because he loves it there. His family's there. He's there. Maybe they can keep him. He would be the best coach in the country that they could possibly keep. I got to think that. And again, 7-6 last year with a bowl loss to Utah State. At number 37, we got Jeff Hafley of Boston College. He's turned in 2 basically 500 seasons. 5-5, 6-5, 6-5, 6-6, whatever it is, something in that range the last 2 years at BC. BC, one of the reasons they hired him, and they stated this at his introductory news conference, is coming from Ohio State. We know that he is used to winning. He's not used to losing, used to going 12-1. So we want that kind of guy. We want a guy that's just, this is what we do. We win. We did not get to see him coach last season with a healthy Phil Jurkovec at quarterback, the Notre Dame transfer who is loaded with talent. I like Phil Jurkovec. I think he's a really good quarterback. He hurt his wrist. I'm having wrist issues myself. He hurt his wrist September 11th, and then he rushed back. He probably shouldn't have come back the rest of the year. They rushed him back with like 3 to 4 games left to play, and he just wasn't the same. So hopefully a healthy Jurkovec, Hafley, he's upgraded the offense, and he's a defensive guy. But if you know what Boston College has been under Steve Adazio, the offense was non-existent, awful. Basically, get a really good running back like the Williams guy that went to the Giants. Can't think of his first name right this second. Who ran for a zillion yards, 2,000 yards. And Boston College very much played 1970s kind of football. Jeff Hafley he's turned over that offense, and they play a dynamic brand of offense now. You would be surprised. Turn into a Boston College game for the first time in forever. So Hafley's got a chance to do something there at BC. It'll be interesting to see what he does this year. All right, here we go with another Group of 5 guy that was super successful, now transitioning to the big time. Billy Napier, Florida. We know that he was partially hired because he can recruit, because we know that Dan Mullen let that go. And so Billy Napier right now, I'm going to say this in a positive way. He's losing some recruiting battles out there, but at least he's in it. Mullen wasn't in it. He's fighting with Alabama and Texas A&M and Georgia for players, but he's in the running. He is fighting for players. So if he can turn a few of them Florida's way, and he has, then he's off to a great start. Okay, Billy Napier bringing in his offensive coordinator from Louisiana. He was masterful there. Louisiana went 13-1 last year. He went like 33-9, whatever the record was, 33-5 for 3 seasons. Phenomenal job at Louisiana. Took a pretty marginal program and lifted it to the very heights of the Sun Belt. Billy Napier at Florida, we got him at 36. And again, this is kind of weighing, okay, group of 5 success coming into the big time. This is where we've got him right here. Shane Beamer, we gave him a slight notch over Billy Napier because he's turned in the 1 season at South Carolina. And man, am I impressed with Shane Beamer. He played 4 quarterbacks, and none of them were any good. And we say that with all respect. We know that they tried, they did their best, but they are not SEC starting quarterbacks. None of them. And the guy in the bowl game was like, hadn't played for like 3 years at that position, was a wide receiver. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. But Shane Beamer played 4 quarterbacks, and each quarterback started 3 games. And he beat Florida, he beat Auburn, beat North Carolina in the bowl game, went 7-6, coming off 2-8 with Will Muschamp. Shane Beamer's off to a great start at South Carolina, and guess what? He's got a quarterback. Spencer Rattler is better than you think. He, of course, has the reputation of getting benched and losing his job to Caleb Williams at Oklahoma. And that is true. He didn't play great, but he didn't play awful. And he had a really good 2020 season. His 2021 was 11 TDs, 5 picks, and made some mistakes, got benched. The offense wasn't churning at Oklahoma pace. But Spencer Rattler is a top 15 quarterback in college football. So Shane Beamer's got something going here. All right, at 34, Tom Allen, Indiana. If you're excited about college football, if you want to see somebody excited, you got to be a Tom Allen guy or gal. Sorry, Katrina. Cheryl's here. Anybody else? Our 5% ladies in the audience, we appreciate you so much. We would love to see that increase. Tom Allen, yeah. This dude has bloodied his forehead, head-butting dudes with helmets. I've seen him trip and fall because he was leaping up into the stands, high-fiving folks. He is full throttle all the time. He's PJ Fleck without the polish and without the vocabulary. He is just a football coach that is excited. Okay. Takes over a pretty marginal program that's bottom 3 or 4 in the Big Ten, elevates it 8-5, almost win a bowl game, almost go 9-4, 8-5, blow a 2-touchdown lead to Tennessee in the Gator Bowl 2 years ago. But anyway, 8-5, then has that really nice season, the shortened season, 6-2, almost beat Ohio State. Then last year, loses Michael Penix. You should be a better coach, and you should put your team in a position that if you lose your quarterback, you don't come completely unraveled. And Indiana was horrendous last year. 2-10, did not win a game in the Big Ten, but look at his recruiting class. He just brought in the best class in the history of IU football. Tom Allen at 34. All right, we'll take this. I got to economize my time here. Jeff Brahm at Purdue, number 33, coming off a big season, 9-4, should have been ranked in the top 25. This is why you throw away the AP rankings. Purdue beat 2 top 5 teams. All their losses were highly respectable. They finished 9-4, and they did not finish in the top 25. Stupid. Jeff Brahm at 33. All right, let's move along to the team that Purdue defeated controversially in the Music City Bowl, and that's Josh Heupel in Tennessee. Tennessee football needed Josh Heupel. Jeremy Pruitt ran amok from a recruiting standpoint, NCAA violations. That still has yet to be completely vetted, but Heupel's going to have to work with some limited scholarships. But man, the dude can run an offense, can he? And he found a quarterback in Hendon Hooker, one of the Untold secrets, under the radar performances for 2021. Hendon Hooker, 31 TDs, 3 picks, really operated the offense. And you would think that they throw the ball like it's a Mike Leach kind of. No. It's power running first and foremost, but in space and tempo that will just give you whiplash. Tempo. So Josh Heupel's off to a good start. Let's understand and not get too excited when a coach takes over a bad program and elevates them to, let's say, bowl status, 7-5. They look so much better. That's to their credit. That's good, but a lot of guys do that. The next jump is the tough one. To go from 7-5 in the SEC to 10-2. That means you're going to have to start beating teams like maybe Arkansas, Arkansas, Kentucky, that range, Florida, etc. Josh Heupel off to a good start at Tennessee, number 32. Greg Schiano built Rutgers football into its best version of Rutgers football since the beginning of time. This is a program that, of course, played the very first college football game and has been awful throughout its history. And Greg Schiano made it a respectable program during the 2000s. He left. He did the NFL. He did coordinator job at Ohio State on the defensive side. Comes back to Rutgers and takes over the worst Power 5 program and makes them respectable, meaning they compete. They don't get blown out by 50 points every game. They've had an instant rise to being able to compete with the Illinois, Maryland's, Indiana's, Northwesterns in the Big Ten. Greg Schiano knows how to run a program, knows how to coach football, fundamentals, hard work. He's a football coach's football coach. All right, Greg Schiano with 31. All right, let's check the comments quickly. Oh, man, there's a ton. Jay Markey, a Rutgers comment. Very nice. Check is saying that UCLA's admissions standards make it extremely challenging to recruit at a high level. I have heard that. We've talked about that. Hopefully, check, whatever the rest of your name is, check something about the contract. You've heard us discuss UCLA football with Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football because he is a bastion of knowledge concerning UCLA. Andrew Ho, question, how many wins will it take to win the Pac-12 South this year? It could be 6-3. Probably 7-2 should do it. Tim, appreciate that. Hit the like button. Super chat would be fine as well. Hit the like. Thank you so much for that. Number 33 coach has a losing record in 5 seasons with his current team. This is gold. Schiano's 33, correct? Who's 33? I'd have to go back. We'll address that if we have time. Yes. Exploring with Ben. We talked about that. Billy Napier. All right. No, Eric, we could do it much better than this. You guys weren't around for the advent of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. My goodness, man, I used to dress up. I used to bring it. Now I just throw the t-shirt on and that's it. Okay. I don't see anything else that I need to address here. No comments that really grab me that I can find. Appreciate you all being here. Let's pick it up. Yeah, my number 33 head coach. Yeah, Dennis was making fun of this one, I guess. Jeff Brahm at Purdue. Yeah, he's one game under 500. What was Purdue before that? A zillion games under 500. He's improved the situation. And there's 65 head coaches in the Power 5. He's only mid-tier. He's at the middle. All right. Heupel at 32. Schiano at 31. At number 30, he's won 2 division championships in the last 5 seasons. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt cut his teeth, of course, and made a name for himself at Michigan State as D coordinator, went to Pitt. And I don't know what this dude can do when it comes to, it's got to be a combination of 3 things. Recruiting the right guys at the defensive line position, especially D-end, developing them as pass rushers in particular, and then also the scheme. Pitt is always in the top 3 in the country in sacks. And that's got to have something to do with Pat Narduzzi. What also is impressive about Narduzzi is that for his first couple of years at Pitt, they were, outside the military academies, the most run-heavy, and Georgia Tech, the most run-heavy program in the country. And he completely flipped it once he discovered, hey, I want to go this way. With Mark Whipple as offensive coordinator, with Kenny Pickett, of course, since the quarterback position changed over in 2017, Pat Narduzzi went from super run heavy to super pass heavy and made it work. Pitt is the ACC champion. Pat Narduzzi at number 30. All right. At number 29, a guy that I respect highly. And at one point, I respected him much more as a head coach than I do now currently and the job that he's doing. Iowa's, they're good. They're always good, right? Iowa, Kirk Ferentz is an 8-4 coach. That's what he is. I got in an argument with a few Iowa folks the other day that said he's much better than an 8-4 coach. Well, he's won 178 and lost 110. That's not even 8-4. So he is an 8-4 coach at best. I guess he's an 8-4 coach with a bowl loss, 8-5. Man, this guy is a rock. He is the dean of head coaches in the Big Ten. There are so many great things to say about Kirk Ferentz and what he's accomplished at Iowa. At the outset of his coaching run at Iowa, he impressed a ton of people, and it appeared as though he was going to be off to the NFL, like he would be able to name his job. He took over a program that was 1-10. He went 1-10 within a couple of years of going 1-10 at Iowa. In 3 consecutive years with all guys in 0-2, 3, and 4, what they do, they went number 8 in the country. 3 top 10 teams in a row. Has he done that since? Nope. 2 of those teams tied for Big Ten championships in 0-2 and 0-4. Has he done that since? Nope. He peaked his first 5 seasons at Iowa. And they've gone like this since. They haven't gone downhill. They've gone plateaued and leveled and drifting worse. Generally, he had his best 3 seasons at Iowa in his first 5 seasons there. And he's now been there for 23 years. He's doing a nice job. Iowa's competitive. They're one of the top 15 or 20 programs in the country. But if you look at those 3 seasons and then look at what they accomplished in 2008, 2009, in that range, they won an Orange Bowl. They finished in the top 10. They peaked in 2015 with a nice season, helped by the schedule. Iowa has one of the worst offenses in college football, and Kirk Ferentz has done nothing about it. That's not good. I cannot imagine any other coach on this list, especially the 28 above him, that would not address the offense. He should be in the transfer portal getting quarterback competition for a room that is one of the 3 worst quarterback rooms in the Big Ten. He is satisfied, apparently, with going 8-4 and just contending for a Big Ten West title, which is fine. That's great. There's not a whole lot of teams out there doing that, but he seems to be okay with that. That's what we see out of Kirk Ferentz, just a tremendously talented, gifted leader of young men, but he's satisfied with being one of the 4 or 5 best programs in the Big Ten. Look up Iowa's offensive rankings over the past 15 years. I'm not talking about like this has been going on for 3 years, 15 years. It's bottom 30 to 40 in the country all the time. Wouldn't you want to do something about that? Especially when you recruit and develop offensive lines that move on to the NFL and tight ends that might be the best in college football. This might be tight end U, but nothing else. All right. On to 28, Brett Bielema, Illinois. Of course, he's only had the one season at Illinois. What's impressive about what they did last year, even though they were pretty bad most of the time, he immediately upgraded from Lovie Smith, and they beat Minnesota and Penn State, 2 really good football teams. Brett Bielema, of course, had a really good run at Wisconsin. He went to 3 consecutive Big Ten championships, 3 consecutive Rose Bowls. The Arkansas, I've documented that many times, the good and the bad at Arkansas. He says that he learned so much working for the Patriots and the Giants, but especially Bill Belichick and the Patriots. We shall see, because he's a guy that we know wants to smash mouth the defense. He wants to pound the rock and win that way, but he knows he can't do that all the time. He tried to do that at Arkansas with mixed results, but he tells us that he learned how to innovate on offense at New England. He needs to recruit a quarterback that can do it. His recruiting class this past season was alarmingly awful. So, Brett Bielema, really good, amazing at Wisconsin, decent at Arkansas, first year at Illinois, about what you would expect, but did beat Nebraska, Minnesota, and Penn State. All right, number 27, Dave Doran. I have blasted this guy in the past, but he has now put together 2 really good years at NC State, and I believe he has one of the 4 best teams in the conference and could win the ACC this year. Dave Doran, through his first 8, maybe 9 seasons at NC State, won 37% of his games in the ACC, and therefore I blasted him a number of times. Look up my videos. I think there are 2 just rants against Dave Doran of getting to bowl games based on smoke and mirrors and playing East Carolina and VMI and James Madison and Old Dominion non-conference. But now he's got something going there now. 9-3 last year, did not get to play the bowl game against UCLA. Devin Leary's an exceptional quarterback, maybe the best quarterback in the ACC, 35 TDs, 5 picks. They lost one of the best offensive tackles to the NFL draft, but man, they've got a lot coming back on defense. Leary's back. They've got a really good team. And again, 8-4, 9-3 the last 2 years. Dave Doran's got something going finally at NC State. They give him a lot of time, winning 37% of your games in the ACC. I would probably have cut him loose at that point. But he's back. And now he's got something rolling at NC State. And I'm going to be, the ACC intrigues me because Clemson's great and they're the best still. But Wake and especially NC State could knock them off. And then, of course, it's Pitt, it's North Carolina, it's Miami, and the Coastal. All right, Doran at 27. All right, this guy, this will be controversial to some extent, I guess. The good with James Franklin, look at what he did at Vandy. Nobody has ever done that. Okay. We can document that. I have many times. I'm not going to go through the details. Comes to Penn State, his first 2+ years. Okay, first of all, he benefited from the work that Bill O'Brien did at Penn State, which was phenomenal. Bill O'Brien saved the Penn State football program. Okay, Franklin takes over. They go 7-6, 7-6. Didn't look good. 1-2 the third season. He was 1-2. They lost to Pitt by 30, or they lost to Michigan by 32 points. They lost to Pitt. He was teetering. He looked to be on the possible hot seat in year 3 at Penn State. Then, of course, they had the huge rally. They won 7 or 8 consecutive games. They beat Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country. They went to the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten championship. And since then, he's been set. Like that saved his job, and that put him in a firm place in Happy Valley that, okay, James Franklin's our guy. And he had a 4-year run there at Penn State, 2016, 17, 18, 19. They went to 3 BCS/New Year's 6 bowl games. They won 2 of them. They went to the Rose, the Cotton, and the Fiesta. They were the only school in the conference. And I think this means something. It doesn't mean anything in the standings because they've lost all the games except 2016. But they're the only team in the Big Ten that has consistently stood toe-to-toe against Ohio State and played a 4-quarter game every year. They're the only team in the Big Ten since 2016 that's 6 consecutive games against Ohio State, and 2 of them they held a double-digit lead in the 4th quarter. They're the only team in the Big Ten that can play with Ohio State consistently and have under James Franklin. It could also be said that he's blown those games. That's fair. He just brought in the 6th-ranked recruiting class in the country. All right, that's all the good. That's most of the good. 11-11 his last 22 games. His game management is not the best. All right, now he's got what could be a great quarterback coming in Drew Aller. Let's see if he can coach him up, develop him, and do the right thing and win big at Penn State. All right, at number 25, we got Mike Gundy coming off a phenomenal season at Oklahoma State. They came that close to the playoff. And a lot of people would say he needs to be ranked higher. You may be right. Let's also understand, though, that let's go back 11 years. Mike Gundy had Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl, and it appeared as though he was coaching so well and had all that going in the right direction that this was going to be a program that was going to elevate and challenge Oklahoma and be a major player in the Big 12 and be contending for, at the time, BCS bowls and then college football playoff appearances. And they just leveled off. And you talk about Kirk Ferentz being 8-4, Mike Gundy 8-4 for the last 10 years. I'm not going to go crazy just because he had one big season. That's to his credit. They had a great year. They beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. They finished in the top 5. That's a phenomenal season. It's 1. Gundy at 25. All right. People are going to go crazy. He's never been a head coach. I get it. I'm going to bet that Brent Venables is going to win big at Oklahoma. When I say win big, that doesn't mean national championships. Oklahoma's got an issue with recruiting the kind of players that win national championships. They're almost there, but they're going to the SEC, and he's going to have to deal with that monster. But Brent Venables saved the recruiting class of 2022, and everything is so positive about what he's doing right now, and I believe that he's going to make Oklahoma a much, much tougher football team. And I better get going. Let's move it on here. Paul Chryst at 23, Wisconsin. The only thing I don't credit him here is that he took over a good program. He didn't have to build anything. But, man, he's a solid football coach, does a really good job. Wisconsin's always top 15 in the country in that range. And it would be nice. This would really bolster his resume if they could figure out, how do we take the next step? How do we get a couple of game changers on off? The defense is phenomenal. And, of course, they've got one of the best in the business running it. But it's got to figure out, how do I get game changers on offense? That it's just not all offensive line and tailback. Graham Mertz, 5-star quarterback, you would think that would have been the answer. He's got a lot of growth to undergo to be that guy. Paul Chryst at 23, Wisconsin. Number 22, PJ Fleck, Minnesota. All right. Chryst is one more than Fleck. Why is Fleck 22? Well, he's coaching in Minnesota, not Wisconsin. He wasn't given the program that Chryst was, not even close. Look at what PJ Fleck did in 2018. Look at what PJ Fleck did in 2018. It was his first season in Minnesota. And before that at Western Michigan. Imagine, Western Michigan went to the Cotton Bowl. Who does that? Nobody else takes Western Michigan to the Cotton Bowl. PJ Fleck did. and played within a score of Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl. Okay. And turned in the number one recruiting class 2 consecutive years to finish off his stay at Western Michigan in the MAC. Then he goes to Minnesota. His first year's not going well, 2-6. He makes the bold move of firing his defensive coordinator, Rob Smith, former DC at Arkansas. Made some changes, switched out his quarterback, changed his quarterback, went with Tanner Morgan. They won 5 consecutive games, beat some really good teams in the process, beat Georgia Tech by 24 points in a bowl game. That's a bold move, first year. All right, 2018, they go 11-2. They finished in the top 10 in the country. The COVID year wasn't great. Sure, they went 2-4, 2-5. They're back at it this last year, 9-4. So his last 2 full seasons, 11-2, top 10, 9-4 with a bowl win. He's 3-0 in bowl games. BJ Fleck, 22. All right. I really went full bore on this one season from Mel Tucker, but it was mighty impressive. Here's a guy that's got 1 full season under his belt at Michigan State. Of course, the first season was rough, 2-5. But again, the COVID year, the games count, but it has to be placed into context. All right, Mel Tucker, Michigan State. He's talking big things. He's talking national championships. He is in a division that it gets serious every year. He's got to see Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan every year. He's 2-0 against the Wolverines. He got blasted by the Buckeyes twice, just annihilated. They won a bowl game. They beat Pitt, Peach Bowl. Mel Tucker off to a great start, recruiting well, has increased the recruiting status of Michigan State substantially over Mark Antonio. Mel Tucker at 21. Our top 20 includes Matt Campbell at Iowa State. He took over a deplorable program at Iowa State that was winning 2 or 3 games a year. He has lifted it to 8-4 level. Can he keep it going? Well, this last season was his first step back, his first disappointment, his first, okay, is he really that guy? He had his quarterback. He had the best running back in the nation, one of the best running backs in the nation, one of the best tight ends in the nation, one of the best offensive lines. He had everything working for him coming into 2021, and they disappointed at 7-6. Iowa State, Matt Campbell, phenomenal coach. His first challenge in showing what he can really do at Iowa State, and if the ceiling has been hit in Ames, Iowa. All right, quickly to the comments. Falconer X, thank you that. Oklahoma will be lost in the SEC. Could be. Falconer X, appreciate that. Falconer X coming back here. How much do cool sounding names factor into the coaching hires? I say 20% upgrade. Yeah, cool names. Well, you've got, of course, Bronco Mendenhall, but he's out of the coaching game. So Bronco comes to mind. Cool names. Anybody else with cool names? Cool names? Anybody? Cool names? Who's got a cool name? What is the best coaching name out there? All right. I don't see anything here that I need to address. Yes, the Big Ten West is not a gauntlet, but it's deep. It's a deep division. They're really good teams. Well, John, don't give away my secrets, please. Please. Okay. All right. I see nothing here. All right. Okay. Let's get to the top 20. We had Tucker at 21, Campbell at 20. All right. Yes, I know it's one season, but I like Dave Aranda. Baylor. Matt Rule did it one season. Sure, he did. Yes, he did. Dave Aranda replicated that type of season at Baylor. He inherited some talent. He inherited a decent roster. He inherited something. He did not inherit 12-2 winning the Big 12, though. And that's what he's got going there. And he fixed the defense. Of course, the defense was phenomenal under him. And we could see it coming with even at 2-7 in 2020. All right, let's move it to Mario Cristobal at Miami. Between the Miami channel and the Miami live streams, I probably talk more Mario Cristobal than anything, so I'm going to keep it moving from here. Number 18. I need to economize my words a little bit better than I did previously. So number 17, Dave Clawson. Oh, my word. This is the worst program in the history of Power 5 football. Wake Forest. It's not even close. Dave Clawson has turned it into a respectable program, a top 25 program, and they just went to the ACC championship game. He's phenomenal. Dave Clawson can coach. Look at what he's doing at Wake Forest. They've got an all-time winning percentage of 41%. That's like 7 or 8% lower than Oregon State, who's one of the 2 or 3 worst. Wake is by far the worst program in the history of big-time college football. Dave Clawson's getting it done there. All right. Interesting tenure that David Shaw is putting together at Stanford. Of course, he's dropping quickly, but I'm still giving him some level of respect. The dude's a class act. He might be the smartest dude around. Just a well-thought-out guy. All the respect in the world. Based on what I know of him as a person, I'm not going to vouch for the guy because I don't know him to that degree, of course, but he seems like a first-class individual. He did inherit Stanford at its best. Jim Harbaugh built Stanford. David Shaw inherited that program, and he won. Now, what's he doing now? They've been pretty bad now for 3 years. They were really bad last year at 3-9. I believe they're 11-19 the last 3 years. So David Shaw, time to step up, get it done. Whatever you were doing 7, 8 years ago, you're going to have to do it again, or it's going to be shown that you cannot maintain a high status program. All right. This guy, there is no way to in any way give him the type credit or be able to put into words what Sam Pittman is accomplishing at Arkansas. Chad Morris was 0-16, so he took over a program that had not won a game in the SEC in 3 years. The 3-7 finish was remarkable, especially since they were much better than that if you watched the games. And then he goes 9-4 this past year. They beat Texas A&M. They beat Mississippi State. Sam Pittman at Arkansas can flat out get it done. They're good. He's good. How did he not become a head coach before this? He's like in his mid-50s, offensive line coach. Finally gets a big-time job. First-time head coach. And Arkansas is rising. All right. Mike Leach, I'll say it again. Who else can win to the point at Texas Tech where you finish in the top 25 5 out of 6 seasons? And then he went to Washington State, and Washington State over the previous decade was basically going 3-9 and 4-8 every year. What did he do at Washington State? He went 11-2 one year, finished in the top 10. His only fault at Washington State was losing consistently to UW and not getting to the Rose Bowl. He had a couple shots. He failed. Other than that, he is so much better than anything else Texas Tech and Washington State has had over the last 20 years or so since Mike Price at Wazoo. Now at Mississippi State, year 2 was decent. What you would expect at Mississippi State. He's, of course, facing the best division in college football. And Mississippi State had some really good efforts this past year. They lost to Arkansas State on the final play of the game. They beat Texas A&M. They played everybody tough except Bama. Mike Leach at Mississippi State will not go into again, as much detail as we had previously. I would like to, but as you can tell, I can talk forever about head coaches in college football. At number 13, we've got Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. Lane Train, maybe he's grown up. Lane Kiffin is kind of a whiner. That's what's a bit annoying about the guy. He's a bit of a whiner, a bit of a complainer. But, man, he can coach, and he elevates these programs. Now, it's funny that early in his coaching career, he got his best jobs, his best opportunities. Tennessee, a top 10 or 15 all-time program. USC, one of the greats. And the Los Angeles Raiders. Might have been in Oakland at the time. The Raiders. And he squandered all three opportunities. Did not get the job done. Something happened when he went to between Nick Saban at Alabama, probably slapping him around, letting him know, let's be a man. Let's act like a man. Let's act like a head coach in major college football. You're going to get your opportunity again because you're so smart. He's a smart dude and smart about offensive football. So now he's got a second chance. He goes to FAU and they take off. And he's at Ole Miss, and we know what they did last year. 10-3, top 10, roughly top 10 finish in the country. So big offensive mind. What impressed me as well, this last recruiting class for Ole Miss, 5 of the top 7 recruits signed defensive players. He wants to win, not just flash offense. At number 12, we got Mack Brown, North Carolina. Disappointing year last year at 7-6, 6-7. But Mack Brown, my goodness, he's, who do you want to compare him to? Wherever he goes, he's the anti-Steve Sarkisian. Wherever he goes, they're better immediately. First stint at North Carolina. Look at his first couple of years, 1-10. That's how bad the program was. By the time he left, 2 top 10 finishes at the conclusion of his tenure the first time at North Carolina. Then he goes to Texas. They were off the map, off the radar for the entirety of the 90s. Mack Brown gets there. They go to 2 national championship games. They win 1. They're at the top of college football. They're in the top 10 all the time, basically like 8 out of 10 years at Texas. He goes back to North Carolina. They're awful under Larry Fedora. 5-19 the 2 previous seasons before Mack Brown got there. And now he's got the recruiting going. They are going to be an ACC coastal force. Mack Brown, UNC. All right. A lot of people would have Lincoln Riley, I believe, higher. To somebody's comment earlier, I don't remember who, don't be fooled because he's at USC. This doesn't make him a better coach. So Lincoln Riley takes over a great program at Oklahoma. He improves it initially, but did he overall improve it? Great offensive mind. I want to see him take now a program that has all the resources and facilities to be great, but is bad now, but they're not that far away from being decent. And let's say if he can, I brought Alex Grinch with him. Was that a good decision? Can he fix the defense? USC had one of the worst 3 defenses in the Pac-12 last year. So Lincoln Riley at 11. This should work. This should work in spades. Lincoln Riley, West Coast talent. He should keep it there. He's got the name. He did enough at Oklahoma to build a name for himself. His stint at Oklahoma, was it impressive? Generally, but it was also disappointing. He didn't finish. He couldn't get that program to compete against the best, the very best. But it was impressive. They won big. So now Lincoln Riley at USC, it should be intriguing. All right, now here's the anti-USC Lincoln Riley situation where you've got everything at your fingertips. Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Now, 2 of his last 3 seasons are ugly. This is where you question the rankings in regards to We'll never know. What would Pat Fitzgerald do at Georgia or Ohio State? What would he do? Is his ability in a vacuum, is he really good at doing what he's doing with under-recruited and development type players? Is that his niche? Is that his specialty? Or is he that good that if he went to Ohio State or Georgia, he would lay waste to everyone and be a national championship coach? We will never know unless he takes that opportunity. But what he has done at Northwestern is amazing. He has finished in the top 25 5 times, and Northwestern has never been in the preseason top 25. They're never given any credit, any expectation, and Pat Fitzgerald just wins. Although 2 of his last 3 years have been awful. Northwestern, for the first time in its history, had 2 first-round NFL draft selections. They have built some exquisite facilities recently. He might be at the end of the downturn, and it might pick up again. Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern, he knows what he needs to do with those particular athletes to win and compete in that conference. 2 division titles in the last 4 years. At number 9, Mr. Controversy, Mr. Polarization, Jim Harbaugh. You can't discount, and the ranking is about today. And today he is a Big Ten championship coach that went to the playoff, that rolled Ohio State. That was the best team in the Big Ten. But his recent past is, of course, underachieving against top 10 teams in Ohio State. He's still 1-5 against the Buckeyes, but the most recent was impressive. So the most recent season, with his job somewhat on the line, they restructured the contract. They cut his pay. He was coming off a 2-4 season, and he delivered. He delivered. I don't think there's a coach on this board that has done what he has done. Well, I know there's not, because nobody's gone to the NFL and won like Jim Harbaugh. He's got the 4th best winning percentage in the history of the NFL. And he took over a bad football team. He turned around the 49ers. He turned around Michigan. Maybe not to the expectations or the level that Michigan fans would wanted against Ohio State in particular. And he turned around Stanford. Stanford was awful when Jim Harbaugh took over Stanford. And he made it a BCS team. Harbaugh at 9. All right, the job that Mark Stoops is doing at Kentucky, forget the record. The record's not going to blow you away. 59-53 at Kentucky. But it gets better and better and better and better and better. Mark Stoops took over a horrible program that was recruiting in the 60s and 70s, and he has lifted the recruiting up to the mid-20s. And this past season, number 13 in the country. The best recruiting class ever at Kentucky. He's won 10 games 2 of the last 4 years. He's finished in the top 10. This stuff does not happen in Kentucky. He looked to the South and saw that all his recruiting battles would be against Tennessee and Florida and Alabama and Georgia. And so he went north. He knew he'd still have to get players from the South, of course, but he went north. West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. And he's built much of his roster by going north, being the northernmost team in the SEC. Mark Stoops, phenomenal job at Kentucky, our number 8 coach. The next guy, boy, Jimbo. All right, Jimbo. Your team's stacked, and that's to your credit. You're in charge. You got it done on the recruiting trail every year, but especially this last recruiting class, of course. My goodness. They had the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and then even after that, they signed 3 players who were top 10 at their position. Ridiculous, the amount of talent on this roster. He's got all the money himself personally, and I liken LSU and Texas A&M to be in similar situations. They are so desperate to win. They are throwing so much money at their coach, throwing so much money at their football program to say, we just want to win so bad. Do anything. Win. Which it hasn't been long for LSU. Shoot, they've won 3 national titles in the last 15 or 16 years. But for Texas A&M, they've really never won big. This program has not won a conference championship since 98. But they decided when they went into the SEC, they got a taste of this is big here. It means a lot, and we want to be one of those players. And they're in the right state to get it done. And now with NIL, they've got the backers to get it done. Jimbo, 8-4 is not going to cut it. So Jimbo Fisher's built something very impressive. It looks impressive, but it hasn't done anything yet. Yeah, they had the 9-1 season 2 years ago, but I would say outside of Florida, they didn't really beat anyone that was any good that year. Jimbo, here we go. Who's going to be your quarterback? That's a big selection to be made. That's a big determination. King, Johnson. Texas A&M, show us something this year. All right, at number 6, we got the guy that started, and Ohio State is not spelled with a Q, but we've got the guy that started on third base according to a rival coach, Ryan Day. And this is a difficult evaluation as well because he inherited roughly, you could argue from a talent perspective, definitely a top 3 program in the country. That's what he inherited. And he's not screwed it up. Yeah, he lost a couple games he shouldn't have last year, and the fans didn't like it, but he immediately addressed the defense. Maybe he should have addressed it a year sooner after the way they played in the national championship game the year before and against Indiana. But I've got Ryan Day at number 6, again, taking over for Urban Meyer, and it's pretty much at this point his team. And, man, the boy can coach up the offense. Now he's put the defense in capable hands. We'll see if the Buckeyes take off this year. At number 5, we got Kyle Whittingham. Just lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl by a field goal. Won the Pac-12 championship. Has moved that program from Group of 5 status to the Pac-12. And it took a few years, but then he became a power in the Pac-12. Kyle Whittingham, he's one of these guys that has built a program at Utah where you know what you get every year. Wisconsin, Utah. Front 7 on defense, offensive line, run the ball, found a quarterback. He probably made a poor selection, not faulting him. He made the selection based on what he was seeing in practice, and Charlie Brewer had the track record at Baylor. Went to the Sugar Bowl. So he went with Brewer, but Cam Rising turned out to be the guy. Otherwise, Utah might have been challenging for a national championship last year. They might have been in the playoff. But they found the quarterback, did not lose after that until they went to the Rose Bowl. Kyle Whittingham at Utah, exceptional job since day one. His postseason record is stellar. It's like 13-4. Kyle Whittingham, Utah, number 5. At number 4 is a guy that a lot of people don't like, but he wins. He wins. And what was Notre Dame under Ty Willingham, Charlie Weiss, and Bob Davie? Not good. 7-5 most seasons. Brian Kelly made Notre Dame football better than it's been since Luke Holt's late 80s, early 90s. Notre Dame's in better shape than they've been in 3 decades because of Brian Kelly. And before that, he won at Cincinnati big. Now he goes to LSU. So Brian Kelly built Notre Dame football. He left with the 4th best recruiting class in the country. And he just made Notre Dame better and better and better and better and left it in a great place. Now he goes to LSU. Is he going to step up to the challenge? I believe he will. Does that mean he will win a national championship at LSU like his 3 predecessors? We shall see. I've got Brian Kelly at number 4. At number 3, we've got Kirby Smart. And if we had this conversation 3 months ago, a lot of people would be in the chat saying, this guy can't get it done. Can't get over the hump. Well, he did. So now we've got new information. We got Kirby Smart, who can scheme and run a defense like few others and can recruit like few others. He did inherit a really good program. A really good program. Has he made it better? Absolutely. But Mark Richt finished in the top 10 more than half the time. Mark Richt in a playoff era would have been going to the playoffs 4 or 5 times. So he did inherit, he inherited the program and the roster that he took to the national championship game. And basically, you could almost say they were a national championship team. They played that close to the national championship. So Kirby Smart did not build the Georgia program. He upgraded it. And I wouldn't even say substantially because it couldn't be upgraded substantially, but decisively upgraded it. And he got it done. He got it done. He's the national championship coach. Unlike anybody else on this list, except for the 2 guys above him and 2 guys below him at 7 and 12, he has won a national championship. Dabo's at number 2. Some people will disagree with this based on one season where they went 10-3. Wow, that was awful. Okay. They've got to find and figure out if Cade Klubnik is ready or they're going to suffer through another season with DJ Uiagalelei. And if DJ's play against his teammates in the spring game was any indication, it doesn't look like he's gotten any better. But they cannot get another 9-touchdown, 10-pick season out of their quarterback. There's some question as to whether Dabo Swinney's going to adjust with the times and be able to keep up with the transfer portal and make that part of his process, which he will probably need to do. But for right now, his defense is amazing. They still have the best program in the ACC. And what he has accomplished that you can't say about any other coach on this list except number 1 is he took over an okay program, a top 40 program that was down, had been down a little bit, not down 3-9 down, but just getting the bowl games. And he built one of the great dynasties in the history of college football from 2015 through this last season. And it may continue, or that might be it. And if it is, if he finishes out at Clemson with a bunch of 9-3 kind of seasons, and this is what it is going forward, he still will have built a great dynasty for 6 or 7 years at Clemson that they have not experienced ever before. But it's not over for Dabo Swinney, most likely. We shall see. Just because they went 10-3 one year doesn't mean it's all over. But they do need to settle the quarterback position. And the wide receiver play has dropped off considerably in recent years, and the offensive line has never been dominant. So they do have some issues, but the defense is going to keep them right there. So Clemson is in prime position to take over the ACC again, but they're not going to win in the playoff unless they find a passing game. And at number 1, this should be the least amount that I need to talk the entire time. I don't need to confirm his status as number 1. Is he currently the number 1 coach? He's obviously over the career by far the number 1 coach. Is he the number 1 coach right this second? It's possible. It's possible that right this second that Kirby's better or Dabo's better. But that doesn't need to be argued. It's just he's so close. Either he is still the best or he's so close to being the best still that because of everything he's accomplished and who he's been and how he's delivered year after year after year after year after year, he has to be placed number 1 and most likely number 1 all time. It is 8:54. I have to blitz through comments. I have a 9 o'clock record scheduled. And let me make sure I don't miss. I think there's a super chat there. Maybe not. Falconer X, appreciate you being here, man. Dave Clausen wins with less talent than anybody. Yeah. Now you could say he needs to recruit better, so that could be an argument, but I don't know anyone that could go to Wake and get it done. Falconer X, this show, by the way, is brought to you by Falconer X. The voice of college football call-in show here on Monday night, Coaches Rankings, brought to you by Falconer X. All right. Any other contributions I need to get to? Falconer X, of course. Again, the voice of college football Monday night call-in show brought to you by Falconer X. Can the band do script? You caught that. Well, I pointed it out too. Hey, I'm surprised that there aren't more typos. I think I had 2. Yeah, Jed Fish became Jeff Fish, and Ohio State. For people that think I'm a homer, this should prove it right now. Not a homer. I misspelled one word out of a million that I typed before the show, and that was the one. I didn't typo that for Michigan State or Iowa State or Mississippi State, Ohio State. All right. Uncle Rico. Uncle Rico. Good to see you, man. Uncle Rico, like Falconer X, always has a little wit to bring to the show, and I appreciate it. Just got here. Okay, you got 2 hours and 48 minutes of great content there, Uncle Rico, to fill up your time tonight. Dependent Fanatic, good to see you. Who is saying what about our rankings? Bobby is telling us that Bobby Bowden is the GOAT. And you know what? Most people in my position would laugh you off the screen, Bobby Estrada. But you know what? I think that's that can be argued. It can be argued. We're in a world, as you well know, that is all about just how many championships did you win? But that's not all there is to the argument. Is the shirt conveying something about? No. All right. Q wants us to do the greatest college coaches of all time rankings. Okay. All right. We might jump in on that. I am an enormous Clemson fan. That is well known about me. Well known. We will see how Dabo does without Elliott and Venables. Yes, we will see that. Yes, unless they come back before the season starts. I'm missing on who won back-to-back titles. Oh, back-to-back title appearances in 98, 99. Yes, sir. Probably should not have been selected in 98, but they had the same resume as everybody else. I would love to do the call-in portion. Unfortunately, I am up against it. I scheduled an LSU record right now. Let me see if we can push that back. And I am starved as well, I got to tell you. Let's see. Let's make a little internet connection. That would be nice. Why does this laptop always disconnect from the internet all the time? Obviously, the internet's working just fine. We're here. But this idiotic laptop, I should get my new one out. Because I want to talk to my guy, Lon. What's going on? Okay, you know what? Lon can't make it. I'm yours. Now, I'm not going to stay here forever. We've been here for 3 hours plus. Yeah, I am so hungry, and I'm not going to go out and get some crap food. I'm going to make dinner tonight, so that's going to take some time as well. But we're good to go. So let me fix up the phone lines, and we'll get you on here. Let's see how this goes.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios. Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Okay.
That was an invalid PIN for JT Talk Show Internet Radio JT.
No, it wasn't.
4.28.
You dummy.
Re-enter your 6-digit PIN. Thank you for calling Collins Studios hosted call. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host.
Phone lines are open. 860-499-3332. Got a super chat coming in from Falconer X that I believe is of the value of 666. Do I even want to accept that? Fortunately, once YouTube takes that out, it becomes much lower than that. But otherwise, those would be my 3 least favorite numbers in a row. You know, I would accept that if that is going to be our YouTube income for next year. 666-000. We'll accept that. But welcome into the Voice of College Football, everyone. The phone lines are open, and I will post it in just a second at 860-499-3332. And our first caller is on the line.
Hello, Mark. It's the real MVP.
It sure is. What's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. I mean, it was a 3-hour marathon, but we finally got through the list.
I was a little long-winded, I guess. I just wanted to supply without. I envisioned just kind of going through the list and not giving much background, and then people typically, when I do that, I'll get a bunch of feedback, and people say, "We want you to talk and explain why you placed certain people and why you ranked it the way you did." So I tried to speed through it, but I had a lot to say.
That's very true. So the first thing I'll do, Mark, is I saw a post, and I'll give you you know how on TV they do person A versus person B, and then it surprises people who person B is compared to person A.
Okay.
I'll do that for you. Okay.
All right. Do you think I'm going to be surprised?
It surprised me.
The real MVP, you've been watching me for how long? Do you think that you're going to line up resumes and I'm not going to know who they are?
Listen, it's always fun to test somebody and make sure
Okay.
they're on top of their game.
All right.
Okay, so person A is 34-14 in their first 48 games. Person B is also 34-14 in their first 48 games. Person A beat 7 ranked teams. Person B beat 9 ranked teams.
Okay.
Person A beat the number 1 team in the country at their home stadium.
Okay.
So did person B. So who is person A and who is person B?
Okay. Person A, I know that one of them is Jimbo Fisher, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is the other coach coaching currently?
Yes, but not in college or pro football.
Okay. And the other coach beat a number 1 team as well. They almost beat the same number of ranked teams. I think I'm on to this. This is Jimbo Fisher against Kevin Sumlin.
That is correct, Mark.
They both beat Alabama.
Very impressive. Yes, they did. So does that not kind of give you a pause if you're a Texas A&M fan that you're kind of just going through the same thing as with Kevin Sumlin?
I think that's a great point. Kevin Sumlin got off to a great start with Johnny Manziel. One of those years was 11-2, and then 9-4, and then a bunch of 8-5s, and he got fired. Of course, Jimbo took over for Kevin Sumlin, and he's pretty much posted a bunch of 8-4, 8-5s. Had the one 9-1. The only difference I would say is going forward, we would expect Jimbo to take off because of the great recruiting classes, while Kevin Sumlin's recruiting classes were really good, but they weren't anything close to what's going on now.
Yeah, but I mean, this is year 5 for Jimbo Fisher. If not this year, then next year for sure. He's got to win at least the SEC West in the next 2 years. Would you agree with that?
When you say he's got to, I agree with you that based on my standard and what he's being paid to do, yes, he does. But if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to be out of a job. Let's say they go 9-3 the next 2 years and don't win the conference. He's still going to be employed.
Yeah, but I think that seat might be starting to get hot.
Sure, at some point they would have to make a move, but when you're elevated that high, when you are a top 10 program, which they are now, they're not playing like it, but in every other way, they're operating like one. They're operating like a top 3 or 4. Who do you get? If, it's one thing if you're Kansas State and you go 5-7 a couple times and there's like 50 coaches out there that kind of fit your criteria that can upgrade your program and get it back to 8-4. Let's go to bowl games. Let's be pretty good. But when you're you're at that echelon, there's only a couple guys that you're kind of looking to that could improve the situation.
Right. Well, we don't know who all is going to be available in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
In this hypothetical scenario as well. So maybe there's a guy that Texas A&M has took a peek at, and they're just waiting for him if Jimbo Fisher fails. I mean, that's possible. I'm sure they've got a list that they have at all times, being like, okay, if this fails, we got this guy. I'm sure all teams have a list like that. So I wouldn't. They just need to do something. And the next thing I'll ask you about, Mark, is David Shaw at 16. That kind of surprised me. Now, how much credit are you giving him compared to Jim Harbaugh for those early 2010 Stanford teams?
Well, like I stated, I give Harbaugh a lot of credit. He built the program. The Stanford was going 3-9, 2-10. Harbaugh came in and boom, they went to BCS bowl games within a couple of years. Andrew Luck may have had something to do with that, but Harbaugh was obviously the guy. And then Shaw takes it over, and he was able to maintain that from, what was his first year, like 2012? And they were really good for 3 or 4 years. They won a couple Rose Bowls with him. And then it seemed like once it became his roster completely, then they were just good. They were okay, 8-4 good. And now I get your point. I get your point with David Shaw.
Right. I just think having him over a guy like Dave Aranda, I would personally have Dave Aranda above him because Dave Aranda's, in my opinion, has built the Baylor program to where it's at today.
So I'm not above criticizing myself or admitting to a mistake because unlike maybe if you read a top 10 or first of all, I put together 130. So that's a lot of names to sort through, but especially the 65 and the Power 5 that I really went through. I'm just an operation of one, so I can't sit here and diagnose it for like 3 weeks. And so there might be some missteps here and there. I'll admit to that. Dave Aranda would not be the guy though that I thought of in terms of where did I miss it there in relation to David Shaw. I would be more like maybe Paul Christ, Mike Gundy, maybe Matt Campbell. Again, what becomes difficult is they obviously all have different resources.
Right.
Compare Ryan Day and
I
Pat
think that's why people
Fitzgerald.
were upset.
My goodness, that's
right. Yeah, I think that's why people were upset with your Northwestern rankings. But Northwestern's been a solid team at times, and
Number
especially
10.
with the right. I mean, they've won their division 2 out of the last 5 years or something like that.
2 out of 4, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible for Northwestern. That's incredible for any team, first off. But for Northwestern, that's a minor miracle. I mean, that's unbelievable for them. He's got that. He's in the same tier, and I think you've got him in there with Mark Stoops as constantly underrated because of their conference, but is really, really good head coach. Like if you put him in the Big 12 or the ACC or the Pac-12, they'd probably be top 2 or 3.
Well, that's the other difficulty is trying to match records when Brian Harson plays a top 10 team every week and Lincoln Riley's going to see a bunch of Arizona State every week.
Yeah, well, the final criticism or critique I'll give about your ranking is Tom Allen above Shane Beamer. Now, I know Shane Beamer's only done 1 year, but Tom Allen's been there a while. He's only had one great year, and it was in a COVID year, so I'm not sure how much of an asterisk should be put on that. But I think Shane Beamer should be above Tom Allen.
Tom Allen's at Indiana.
Yeah, and Shane Beamer's at South Carolina. They had a grad transfer starting at quarterback at the beginning of the year.
True, but South Carolina has much more ability and resources and recruiting landscape to succeed than Indiana. They got football players all over the place. There are football players running all over the state and all over the South.
So I get that, but this was his first year. It was with the old coach's roster for most of it, and he still outperformed literally everybody's expectations.
Yeah, one season. I put him at 35? He's up there, 39, whatever it is.
36, I think.
Okay.
I'm trying to get him a few more spots up there because I think I think next year with Spencer Rattler,
Oh, yeah. I like him a lot.
I think he'll probably.
I raved about Shane Beamer. Absolutely. But I'm not going to go super, super crazy about one season that went 7-6. Because Will Muschamp didn't give him a horrible roster. He had one horrible year, but they were going 7-6 before that.
Well, yeah, but the wheels kind of fell off at the end of it.
Yeah, one season.
I mean,
Will Muschamp was going 7-6 at South Carolina. He went 9-4 one year. Nobody else was going 9-4 at Indiana. Nobody.
That's fair. That's a fair point. And the final thing I'll ask Mark is, what coach do you see moving up the most from this year to next year's poll?
Well, let's see I would say I'll start at the bottom since they have the highest, the most to go here. I think that, Dan Lanning at Oregon, let's say they go 10-2 and win a decent bowl game, and he could skyrocket from 57. Mike Norvell at Florida State has an opportunity. I don't necessarily know that he's going to take advantage of it, that they're going to be that good. Scott Frost at 51, but I'm going to go with Lanning more than anybody. And of course, Sarkisian, I'm not going to just erase all of his failings from the past if they go 9-3, but of course it's a ranking in the moment. So he has a nice opportunity as well. And, of course, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame.
Okay. Well, the last thing I'll say, Mark, is do you know where Kevin Sumlin coaches?
I don't. You said I'm going to guess the USFL.
You are right. He's the head coach of the Houston Gramblers.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to do any USFL content?
When do they start? They start soon, don't they?
Yeah, this Saturday. I think they play in the first game on Fox and NBC. They're doing the double broadcast.
Would you like me to do USFL?
I'd love any type of football content.
Okay.
I love the sport of football, regardless if it's college, pros, Canadian football, whatever it is. So I'm willing to, but
okay, we'll have to see.
I'd like other people's opinions on
we'll
that.
have to see what everybody else does and what they would like, because this was way before your time, but during the first inclination of the first, what word am I looking for? Anyway, the first version of the USFL. Iteration. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The first iteration. Get this man a dictionary here. Iteration, the first iteration of the USFL in the early 80s. I was a huge USFL guy. Loved the USFL. But I have not kept up, or obviously not knowing that Sumlin was involved, not kept up with any of the news.
Well, I'm just looking forward to any type of football. I mean, it's in the spring, summer months where we only got baseball on, so it'll be something to watch. But
okay.
That's all I got for you, Mark. Let's hit the like button. What is there, 130, 140, and we only got 100 likes? Should be a 1-to-1 ratio.
Well, as you know, I will say we've had a lot more people in here than that. So we could have like 400 likes at this point.
Well, I know, Mark, but if you give people an attainable goal, it makes them feel good about themselves.
Oh, this is true.
See you next time.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Actually, in looking at the numbers, we've had almost 1,200 people in here watching. 1,200. So we should have a lot more likes. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus. Michael, how you doing tonight, sir?
Michael, I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. Just multitasking, actually. Hey, I got a question before I get to. Don't tell me where Jeff Brahm is until I get to. But I'm gonna guess where you had the top Nick Saban. I'm gonna say you had Nick Saban number 1, Dabble 22, Ryan Day 3, Kirby Smart 4.
Okay. Can you see your screen?
Yeah, give me a second here. I gotta refresh. I gotta get to live thing because I just got back from getting to dinner and stuff. So give me a minute.
Well, we don't need to go through all that necessarily. Actually,
Yeah.
Saban 1, Dabo 2, Kirby 3, Brian Kelly 4.
Wow. Where did you have right? Why did you? And you had right day 5.
6,
Wow. Who's 5?
Kyle Whittingham.
Wowzers. Okay, now I'm sure you're probably gonna give me a roundup and stuff, but where do you have Jeff Brahm?
Take a guess first.
I cut some of it into the 30s and I had to take off for dinner and stuff. So I'll probably say maybe 32, 33.
33.
Okay. I bet. And then you had Tom Allen. But you had Tom Allen ranked higher than that, didn't you?
Tom Allen's at 34.
Okay. I can see that because he did have 3 straight winning seasons, I think, or 3 or 4 winning seasons there in a row. They're from like 17 to 20, if I'm not mistaken. In that
Yes.
time frame and stuff like that. But I think it's gonna be somewhat decent, but we'll see what happens and stuff like that. But no, the spring game still, I was gonna say I can see that, but I thought it may be ranked a little bit higher. Pat Fitzgerald then kind of surprised me because I guess you had him 9th or 10th.
10.
I guess that would be right. But no, that surprised me about Ryan Day. I figured you had him in the top 4.
Yeah, that's what I came up with. I just want to see a little more out of Ryan Day to place him amongst the very, very top elite.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. Oh, I got to ask you this. So how did you keep yourself from falling asleep during that Clemson spring game on Saturday? I actually fell asleep watching that in your stream. That is how bored I was watching Clemson.
Yeah, it wasn't the most scintillating offense I've ever seen. No, they've got a lot to fix.
Mm-hmm. And they got to find the punters that can hold on to the football or long snapper.
Yeah, did everybody see this on Saturday? As Michael is telling us, 2 punt snaps were dropped by Clemson punters twice. How does that happen in one practice game?
And with DJ, I'm trying to think. Did he even throw a pass longer than 3 yards?
That was the other thing. Well,
passes,
he did not complete one over 3 yards. He threw a few that were off target downfield.
Mark, you're a few years older than I. I'm sure you could probably hit the target, the receivers better than he could have on Saturday.
Maybe like 15 years ago. Maybe.
Man, Mark, stop selling yourself short, man. But no, I was like, so the impressions of the spring game for Purdue on Saturday. I was really impressed with the defense in the first half.
Yeah, I've got to go back and check it out. I started watching a little bit this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a guy that I think is going to be really good and stuff like that. But no, I just want to say, so are you going to have this up on the website later, the top 130?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I still have not heard back from your webmaster yet.
You know what? I was out taking a walk today, and for some reason that hit me, and I thought as soon as I get back, I've got to put together an email and put both of you on it to kind of kick him in the pants to see what's going on with that.
Mm-hmm. Because I got an actual piece ready to go for the spring game on Saturday. And stuff,
all right.
So.
Well, thank you for that, and I will send out that email tonight. So I apologize for that, and I will text him as well.
You're fine.
And we'll get that going.
You're fine. All right. So what games is Ohio State this weekend? Besides Ohio State, theirs is on Saturday, right?
Ohio State, Alabama, Miami, Georgia, in particular on Saturday.
All right. I was just wondering something. And hopefully they'll be on all on ESPN or some network channel we can watch and stuff. So
Ohio State's on the Big Ten Network. Miami's on the
Okay.
ACC Network. Are you just curious about the Big Ten? I don't know who else is.
no, I want to see. I want to see. So is Bama and Georgia going to be on ESPN or are they going to be on the SEC network?
There's a site. You can look it up. All you have to do is type in college football spring games. I'll look at it right now, but I go to it all the time to figure out what my schedule is going to be because I'm going to go live all afternoon. Florida's got a game on Thursday night, but anyway, on Saturday, you've got most of these SEC games. Yes, they're on the SEC Plus network and ESPN Plus, which I don't get and I don't care to get. Now, Georgia's on ESPN 2 at 1.
Okay, what about Alabama? What about Bama?
Bama's on the SEC Plus.
Because they're doing baseball and SEC now. Oh my God! Wow. Oh well, it is what it is. But I hope Saturday stream it'll be a lot more positive and a lot more fun than it was for last Saturday, man. Compared with what happened last Saturday.
Yeah, if I can get some of these games on the Big Ten, Ohio State. When I used to look this up, it showed that they would be on the Big Ten Network. I would think that they would be, but I'm not seeing that they're going to be on the Big Ten Network. Then otherwise, all we have are a bunch of ACC teams that are on the ACC Network: Miami, Virginia Tech, and Duke.
Not bad. Yep, I was just wondering stuff like that. So, what did you say the website was? collegefreegame.com?
I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, it's
what was the website?
I just Google spring football 2022, spring football games. But the site is fbsschedules.com.
Okay, I'm all right. I think I know which one that is. But yeah, but hopefully, like I said, we don't get no depressing news like we did last Saturday, man. I'm still trying to grasp that without Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, that was awful.
Yep. All right, I'm sure you got other callers and stuff. Thanks for taking my call, and I look forward to seeing the whole list later.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one. Yep.
Next up at the Voice of College Football. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Mark, Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well. What's going on?
Well, what do you think I'm calling for?
What do I think you're calling for? Please don't do that to me. I don't know.
I thought you put your left knee on. But,
you're starting to.
So you have
fading on us. There we go. We've got you.
You had Lincoln Riley at 12. Is that right?
11. Yeah.
And I've been hearing it a lot on the channel that Oklahoma was slipping with Riley. Is that right?
Did I say that? I said in certain ways. I stated it two different ways. I said, here are ways in which you could say that he upgraded the program. Here are ways in which you could say that they played slightly worse during his tenure, year to year. If you go 2017, then look at 18, 19, 20, and 21, you could see a very slight decline.
Yeah, definitely. There was a decline. But there's a couple reasons. I've also heard that he inherited a great program from Bob Stoops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In 2014, Bob Stoops went 8-5.
Yeah.
And they were 55th in offense in the country. 55th in offense.
Okay.
And then they get this guy, Lincoln Riley. He comes in, upgrades the offense to number 7 in the country. They start getting guys that are transferring to the program. So they went from 8-5, and then Riley's first year as OC, they went 11-2. In 2016, they go 11-2 again. And then Stoops retires. Riley takes over. And then Riley basically loses 2 games a year for the next 5 years. And we know how that went. As far as when he was as the coach, for 2 years, he had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, right? I mean, he had Baker Mayfield with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Even USC fans, we knew when we dropped from going from having Carson Palmer and then Leinart. In a lot of ways, when John David Booty came in, he was a great quarterback. Again, there were probably a couple of games that maybe Leinart or maybe Carson Palmer would have won those games for us. You know, just what it is. You know, you're not always going to have Heisman Trophy quarterbacks, and having a Kyler Murray and a Baker Mayfield in college as your starting quarterback, going, well, yeah, you did better in those years, but then you kind of dropped off with these true freshmen. You know, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? He was in a situation where he didn't have the kind of talent at quarterback, and in college football, quarterback's a big portion of that.
Yeah,
and I'm hearing about the defense with Grinch.
I was just going to say that you understand the flip side of that argument is, well, of course you're going to coach well because you got 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
Well, he attracted those guys. They came to play for him. Just like we're going to see. Let's see how many Heisman Trophy quarterbacks are going to Oklahoma now, and how many Heisman trophies are going to come to USC.
Well, we also
right
see other freshman quarterbacks who are excelling at other schools, and they're not making an excuse about their play being downgraded, meaning Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
True, but I'm looking at those quarterbacks and then look at the receivers they had.
Okay, well then Oklahoma should have recruited better receivers. You know, they're I understand your points. There can always be counterpoints to those, though.
No, true. I'm just looking at it. I'm not questioning your rankings. That's the way it is. And I mean, I'm a head scratchers with Harbaugh. There's a couple of guys in that top 10. I was pretty shocked he wasn't in the top 10. Because basically all he's done is won his conference, won 10, 11 games every year. Put up some good fights. He had one bad game against that LSU team. We kind of went around the other day about it. But that LSU team was an insane offense.
Sure.
Just insane. And they hit Oklahoma early in that game. They jumped out to a huge lead. There were some questionable calls. I went and watched it, and I was like, wow, how the hell they fall behind so bad? There was one egregious offense. I mean, one stuck out bad. I mean, you can't blame the referees. But the dude got dragged down, and there was no flag. It was pretty amazing on third down.
But how about the playoff appearance before that? How about the year before that against Alabama?
How much did they lose by?
They got killed. I know what the final score was, but the game was never in doubt. Alabama yawned through the second half of that game. The game was never in doubt.
We're talking Alabama. How many teams are going to go, up against?
That's what the standard is.
Alabama team.
They were in the playoff and they got killed.
Okay, but Ryan Day got smoked as well. What do we say if you get smoked in the playoffs? You're not a good coach.
No, and I'm not saying that. But Lincoln, it's one thing, and
Alabama crushed.
And we could say Nick Saban got crushed against Dabo Swinney in the 18 championship game. But there's a difference when you've never won a big game on a national stage versus, okay, every coach has had bad games. Of course, it's competitive. There's not a coach in the history of football that hasn't looked bad on an occasion. But all the other guys I'm going to name, Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Ryan Day, have won big games against big national opponents on a big stage. Lincoln Riley did not.
Right. Riley lost in double overtime to a very good Georgia team.
Absolutely, he did.
Double overtime. That could have gone either way. So, I mean, to say, well, he's never won a big game is yeah.
No, I didn't say he didn't win a big game.
Correct.
I didn't say he didn't win a big game. A lot of people would tell you he hasn't won a big game, but I'm big into conference games, and so I think him going to Big 12 championship games and winning them, those are big games to me. But I made the caveat, he's not won big games on a national stage.
Right. And Ryan Day's won one.
Okay.
Right?
He's had a lot less time, but yeah. And if you want to,
well, not a lot less, but
and if you want to take your argument from the double overtime against Georgia, the other Clemson game for Ryan Day, you could say he got robbed. So you could say he's won, you know, if you want to go that route of looking at extremely close games, Ryan Day lost because either the officials, if you want to go that route, or because he had a miscommunication between Fields and Olave and he ran the wrong way and they threw an interception, or they would have won the game. You know, you can say the same thing. So if you want to discount, if you want to discount Lincoln Riley's loss against Georgia, I can do the same thing with Ryan Day against Clemson the first time.
I'm not here to argue which was better. You have Ryan Day at 6 or 7, and you've got Lincoln Riley outside the top 10. Again, a guy that's just won his conference every year, gone to the playoffs multiple times, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, continues to be one that took an offense that was 55th in the nation, turned around to 7. Clearly one of the best offensive minds in the country. He's going to recruit lights out.
Okay.
And I'm just saying, I'm not saying he's better than Day. I think, as a matter of fact, I would say neither one of them. We don't have, you know, we can look at some of these other guys who've been around for a decade or more. And say, yeah, well, what they've done. You know, you're right. What, Day's been there 3 years? I can't remember.
So
something like that.
Yeah. So understand.
And he's been there 5 years. I mean, we're talking 5 and 3 years. Coaches have been coaching 5 years and 3 years. And the biggest myth I want to call about, not Ryan Day versus that's we've gone way off where I want to go with this. I want to just squash this whole idea that Lincoln Riley walked into this purring Oklahoma situation. So again, when he came in, they'd lost 5 games that year. He comes in, he turns the offense around. They go 11-2 with him as the offensive coordinator. They didn't want him to lead. They said, dude, you could be the head coach. Here's the keys. Stay. You're the head coach. And then all he does is first year there, has a Heisman Trophy winner, wins, goes to the playoffs, almost wins that game, that playoff game. We talked about double overtime. He does a lot of stuff. He probably turned around Oklahoma's trajectory, if we really want to be real about that. And all he really has done, yes, he hasn't gone over the hump. Look at the teams he's lost to. He's lost to the same teams that everyone's lost to. He lost to an insanely good LSU team. Insanely good. He lost to this guy named Nick Saban, right? It's not like he's getting bombed out by scrubs. And then I'm again, just looking, forget the rankings, the coaching rankings. The thing I had the most problem with, I keep hearing it over and over again, is that Bob Stoops had it rolling. He inherited this great program, and that it's diminished under him. That is all false. And I'd love to please explain how I'm wrong in my logic.
All right. I'm not disagreeing with anything you've said. Understand that anytime anyone puts together rankings, or at least I guess I can only speak for my rankings, is the one thing that you can't account for. Well, there's a lot of things, but one would be the difference or the drop between number 6 and number 11 might be razor thin, might be minuscule. I would have no issue if somebody else here or anywhere else did their 1 through 65 Power 5 rankings and they had Lincoln Riley at 5 or 7 or 8. I wouldn't be on here blowing a gasket, going crazy, saying Lincoln Riley, there's no way he's the 5th best coach in college football. No, I think that's a reasonable ranking for Lincoln Riley. I think it's that close. I think after Saban, Dabo, Kirby, that, if somebody had Lincoln Riley 4 and they had Brian Kelly down at 10 or 11, I wouldn't think that they were stupid or didn't know what they were talking about. I think all those resumes are so, and not just the resumes, the circumstances surrounding the resumes are so different and have different benefits or detractions from each situation that you've got about 12 or 14 guys there that I can argue in any order.
Yeah. Also, I don't think they're going 15-0. I've been on record saying I think they'll improve to maybe 8-4 possibly 9-3. So you can throw that comment out the window. And as far as, let's not talk about Kelly. I mean, I brought this up to you before. Brian Kelly was 500 against top 25 at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly in the postseason, well, first off, he didn't even play in a conference, so he never won a conference championship. He never won anything in the postseason. And it seems a lot of the critique towards Riley appears to be in the postseason. And I mean, we've got guys like Harbaugh and Kelly in there, which may be living off of their old Pac-10 days when they were really good at Stanford and really good. Wrong Kelly. But Brian Kelly at 500 as a top 25 coach, he's had some great O-lines. He's also had some stinkers of games. And for some reason, his teams just don't show up in the postseason. So, again, I have no problem with your. You can put Lincoln Riley at, with the guys that are unproven because a brand new situation, he might do nothing at USC. But I'm saying up until this point, his resume at Oklahoma, he didn't come into a situation where Bob Stoops had it rolling and he took it into the ground. And that talk about Oklahoma propaganda. I mean, again, they were 8-5 when he showed up, 55th in the nation in offense. He turned that thing around quick. Has 2 Heisman quarterbacks. He's put together a pretty good program. But one thing I am certain about is USC does recruit better. And there's also a thing that history shows is that if you put a good coach at USC, they're going to win. Are they going to win championships? No. Are they going to be solid? Most likely. And there's a good chance they're going to win a couple of championships. So that's really it. It's not the number where you have him or that he's going to go 15-0 like someone said. I never said that. I've never said that. I expect them to lose at least 4 games on defense alone. That's why I put them at 8-4. I think the offense will be lights out. I think the defense is going to struggle. They're going to lose to Notre Dame for sure. They're going to lose to Utah for sure. And they're going to drop 1 or 2 more just because of their defense, especially the interior, nose tackle and probably, in the linebacking core. But this myth that Riley ran the Oklahoma program to the ground is just, it's getting pretty played. If anyone looks at the numbers, it's very clear that wasn't the situation. So anyway, good list. I enjoyed the list. It was really fun to watch. Enjoy all your shows, Mark. Thanks for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for calling. All right. Yeah. Lincoln Riley at 11. And again, once we get past the top 3, so even with Brian Kelly at 4 and everybody else, probably from Brian Kelly, I can find my list from 4 to 12 and Mac Brown, based on their credentials and qualifications, I would have no issue with anyone arguing that, 12 should be 5 and 6 should be 9 and 10 should be 4. I think it's razor thin between 4 and 12. And the thing I would say about some of the coaches that were mentioned by the last caller, by Tim, would be that, Jim Harbaugh, he's accomplished something at 3 stops that Lincoln Riley has not had to encounter, and that's building a program. Yeah, I understand that Bob Stoops went 8-5 once that time. And there was another time, I think he had an 8-5 when Sam Bradford got hurt. But from 2000 until Bob Stoops left in 2016, so for 17 consecutive years, Bob Stoops lived in the top 10, won Big 12 championships, went to multiple national championship games, won a national championship, and I understand Lincoln Riley had been there for 2 years, but the program that he inherited as a head coach just went to the playoff and then won the Big 12 championship and was 11-2 and 11-2 those 2 years prior to taking over the program. So, and finished in the top 10 in the country. So those 2 teams were pretty good that he inherited. All right. No calls. Looks like I get to go eat. So I appreciate everybody being here, the voice of college football. And we've got a few different directions to go next. We're going player rankings now that spring football is coming to a conclusion. Spring football is almost over. Therefore, we're going to dive into player rankings. I would like to rank all the players at each position in each conference, and then a top 10 national rundown at every position. And then we've got schedule previews. We got to go that route. Schedule previews coming up, as well as somebody suggested we do all-time program rankings. Or no. We've done that. All-time coaches rankings. Yeah, somebody brought that up and suggested that. Maybe we'll go that route, but we're definitely going to go with schedule previews and player rankings. And I do like this all-time coaches rankings show. Maybe we could do that as well. Thank you, Mr. X. Thank you. Mozart was in here. Thank you for that. Tim is mentioning here, it's not like he walked in, meaning Lincoln Riley, to those 10-2 teams. He was the offensive coordinator on those teams. Yes, but Bob Stoops was going 11-1 way before Lincoln Riley ever showed up. So he was not dependent on Lincoln Riley to field top 5 teams in the country. He'd been doing it for years. So Bob Stoops succeeded well before Lincoln Riley. Sure, he got into a situation where he had a slight downturn for one season, and Lincoln Riley was his next choice as an offensive coordinator who stepped in, and they elevated the program back to about where it was before. But Bob Stoops was, check the record, irregardless of offensive coordinator, Bob Stoops was going 11-1 every year during the 90s, basically. Bob Stoops, my goodness, I don't even need to pull up the record. We know the record. We know that to get it exact, he was going to national championship games and winning the Big 12. Shoot, Mac Brown was at Texas. Bob Stoops was beating him down. And Mac Brown had a top 5 program to top 10 all those seasons at Texas, but he couldn't beat Bob Stoops, and Bob Stoops was winning the Big 12. So Bob Stoops did not need Lincoln Riley. He had a 15-year run at Oklahoma way before Lincoln Riley showed up and to win. So not discrediting Lincoln Riley's contribution, because he was needed at that time, but it's not like he was the only guy that could elevate the Oklahoma offense, because it was done before. So Lincoln Riley's at USC. We'll see what he does. This is the expectation, and thank you so much for the super chat. One Scoop, John. I appreciate it so much. Food Delivery Fund. Well, thank you for that. We're doing a little Hello Fresh cooking. So I get all the instructions to do, and even an idiot like me can make a pretty good meal. I make some killer pork chops with those instructions. They're really good. But I think it's a little chicken tonight of some sort. Where was I? I was on a bit of a roll with Bob's. Rank the Heisman. Rank Heisman winners? I could tell you some Heisman snubs and some unwarranted, invalid Heisman winners. Paul Hornung, 1956. Let's start with that one. Yeah, there are a lot of good ones to get to. And again, One Scoop John, thank you so much for the contribution. That's so much nice of you. Tim had a rebuttal to that. Bob Stoops only lost less than 2 games, only twice, 2000 and 2004. Yeah, if you count the national championship games. Okay. Bob Stoops, I guarantee he lived in the top 10. If we want to get the records exact. Okay. And I certainly recall his first season because they faced Ole Miss, a team I was covering at the time, in the Independence Bowl. So 7-5, 13-0, won the national championship. 11-2, number 6 in the country, won the Cotton Bowl. 12-2, won the Rose Bowl, finished number 5. 12-2, lost the national championship game at the Sugar Bowl, number 3. 12-1, lost the national championship game at the Orange Bowl, finished number 3. 8-4, won the Holiday Bowl, finished 22. 11-3, lost the Fiesta Bowl, finished 11. That was the Boise State game. 11-3, lost the Fiesta Bowl, finished 8. 12-2, lost the national championship game to Florida, finished at 5. 8-5, won the Sun Bowl. 12-2, won the Fiesta Bowl, finished at 6. 10-3, won the Insight Bowl against Iowa, I believe, number 15. 10-3, lost the Cotton Bowl, number 15. 11-2, won the Sugar Bowl, finished number 6. 8-5, lost the Russell Athletic Bowl to Clemson. 11-2, lost the Orange Bowl, number 5. That was the Clemson game in the playoff. And 11-2, won the Sugar Bowl, number 3 in the country. It's pretty good. Pretty good. 121-29 in conference. So he's winning. Yeah, he's winning 85% of his games. Anybody whose coach is not Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, or Dabo Swinney would be okay, or Pete Carroll 15 years ago, but within the last 5 years would be fine with Bob Stoops as their head coach. All right. We got a call, so we'll take it. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Nick. How's it going?
Hey, Nick. I'm doing well.
Hey, I won't keep you long because you got to go eat. So, 2 quick things. Casey Thompson at Nebraska. What are your thoughts on that? Adrian Martinez seemed like a good fit for most of the games he played there, except he would just make dumb turnovers. I don't know. He was missing his rabbit's foot, just bad luck. I think Casey Thompson could actually really help that program. So I'm really intrigued about how you feel about their season coming up. And then second of all, wanted to get your thoughts on James Franklin at Penn State. This will be the 3rd season. The past 2 seasons, he's coming off a 5-loss season and a 6-loss season, I think. So how much pressure is on him to perform, especially since Jim Harbaugh is off the quote-unquote media hot seat from winning the Big Ten championship? Anyway, I'm going to let you go, but just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thanks.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Well, when it comes to, I'll take the second first, James Franklin. I would say that I had quite a bit to say about James Franklin when we were running through our rankings. So I don't want to do all of that rhetoric from earlier in the show. So if you go back to the rankings, just start the video from the beginning. You'll be able to go through and spin through the video pretty quickly because I've got all the coaches' rankings down at the bottom, and we've got James Franklin where we've got him ranked, I believe, at 26th in the country. So go there, and I addressed everything regarding James Franklin, the good and the negative. So again, I'm not going to run through all that again. It's a pretty long spiel on James Franklin. In regards to Nebraska and Casey Thompson, it's going to be fascinating to see if Nebraska can turn over these 1-loss, 1-score losses. I'm not going to be surprised if they turn over enough to get to a bowl game. I think that's about where this program is. They've recruited around 25th in the country, 25 to 30 in the country under Scott Frost. They should be getting to bowl games. They have as talented a roster as Iowa and Wisconsin. They just haven't developed the players. They've played horrible special teams. As I noted when we got to the Scott Frost portion of this, I noted a number of games, Minnesota in particular, where I was writing down, that's mismanaged. that's mismanaged. And I'm not talking about play calls. I'm not going to say that I can match Scott Frost when it comes to play calling. He's a brilliant football mind. I'm not a play caller, but mismanagement in game situations. Casey Thompson's a significant upgrade as a passer over Martinez. I almost said Taylor Martinez, Adrian Martinez. And as you mentioned on the phone call, Adrian Martinez, his amount of turnovers was on the high end, but it wasn't ridiculously high. It was on the high end. It was more than you would like, but it was more so the timing of the turnovers. They're driving down the field and he takes off against Illinois. They've got a chance to win the opener and drive down the field, and he takes off up the middle, and he's not paying attention to the traffic around him, and he gets his arm pulled. Ball comes loose. They lose the game. So Casey Thompson, the first time I saw him play was against Colorado. I had heard about him. I knew about him, but I saw him play in the bowl game against Colorado once he stepped in for Sam Ehlinger, and I was immediately impressed. He was adjusting in the pocket, throwing off platform, throwing at different arm angles, and he made a handful of NFL kind of throws in that game. And he led the Big 12 in touchdown passes last year. They've made a significant upgrade. And when I say significant, I don't mean that Adrian Martinez can't play. I just mean that here's a guy that's going to throw the ball based on what I've seen, which was quite a bit of Casey Thompson. He's going to throw the ball on time, and he's going to just take care of it better, and he's going to make some throws that Adrian Martinez flat out. And it wasn't about arm strength. It's that he can throw from off platform, and he can throw. See, Adrian Martinez is a mobile quarterback. That doesn't mean you can throw well off platform or while you're running. He couldn't do that. He was inaccurate. Thompson's just a better thrower of the football. He's just more talented. That doesn't mean he's got a stronger arm. I wouldn't even say that. He might. I haven't paid that much attention to that part of it. It's more about throwing ability, arm talent, trajectory on the ball, knowing when to, and just accuracy is so much better than Adrian Martinez, who missed a ton of wide open receivers. They've upgraded significantly there. The schedule's softer. No Ohio State, no Michigan State. They've got Michigan again. They've got Oklahoma at home. That's a winnable game. That doesn't mean that they should win or they should be a favorite. It's just more of a winnable game than it was last year with a better quarterback and being at home. Nebraska should get to 7 wins against that schedule. That's where I'm at on Nebraska right now. Appreciate you being here. The Voice of College Football. I'll be back Tuesday. We've got a 5:30 live stream Eastern time. Iowa, we've got Nebraska at 7 p.m. So there you go, Nebraska. Nebraska live on our Nebraska channel at 7 Eastern time. We'll see you then. Thanks for being here. 3 hours and 49 minutes with all of you. See you tomorrow. Do you guys want the chat going? I know you can't hear me. I shut my mic off. How many people want the chat running? John asked for the chat running. Does anybody else want the chat running? Going once? Going twice? Going anybody? All right. We're out. Thanks. See you Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern, Iowa.